Okay, so now that we have quorum, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:06 and ask that people stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Now we have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Kathleen? Anyone want to sell? Okay, Sophie will second. All in favor? Okay. That's 6-0, 6-0 at the moment. And then we can move on to the public hearing. I see our two GHS student government leaders here. Come on up.
Good evening, distinguished members of the Board of Education and Dr. Jones. I hope all has been well in the time since our last BOE meeting. Since then, we've successfully identified our subcommittee chairs. At our next mass meeting, all representatives will join their chosen subcommittees and begin thoughtful discussions led by subcommittee chairs. Moreover, each class has been successful and accomplished a lot. The freshman class officers have been elected. Congratulations to Anna, Maya, Sanjay, and Jack. They ran excellent campaigns and we're excited to see all they accomplished this school year. The sophomore class has continued their dedicated efforts, brainstorming a school-wide house-based competition called the Cardinal Clash. Earlier this month, they hosted a bake sale as well. The junior class has been working on their upcoming pie fundraiser and their pumpkin decorating contest. The following day, pumpkins will be on display for the school to see and vote for the favorite, which will of course be mine. The senior class has had remarkably successful concession stands for football games and has officially secured November 24th for the Harlem Wizards basketball game. Additionally, our homecoming spirit week was fantastic this year. We began with a pep rally to introduce the week's themes, present fall sports teams, and recognize captains for all seasons. While some felt it ran a bit too long, overall feedback was positive, especially from winter and spring captains who were recognized for the first time in years. Furthermore, there was a faculty inflatable costume race, which stirred up lighthearted and spirit-filled debate over who really won. Throughout the week, dress-up days like Beach Day, Rhyme Without Reason, and class colors all had great turnout. Senior dress-up day was exceptional, with many seniors dressing in groups this year. Lastly, the new cafeteria options, including Domino's and garden catering, have been well received. While the recipe slightly differs due to national regulations, students remain grateful. Thank you for your continued support of student initiatives. We've had an excellent start and a great foundation for the rest of the school year. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Jones, and community members. I'm Gabriel Leza, the student body president at Greenwich High School, and I'm happy to speak before you this evening. As we kick off this school year, I can say that Greenwich High School is thriving as usual. I personally have found the events to be fantastic and commended the efforts of the GHS administration. With this, I also give thanks to the BOE for placing the full year 2027 capital budget action item on tonight's agenda. On behalf of the students, we appreciate the investment into high school improvements, from spark boards to kitchen equipment and to the grand pool project. These stand as tangible reflections of the work done here. Moving on to curricula regarding the change to adjust freshman English from 112, 113, and 113A to solely 113 and 113A seems like an interesting proposal. It would align with how other classes have two levels, like freshman biology, and so we're not opposed to this change. I would, however, like to urge more student and teacher input. The three-way divide ensures that each of the classes can move at a pace adequate for the class, and this change may generalize too harshly. There should be more discourse regarding the differentiation that would be made before this policy is adopted. Relatedly, the AP weighting policy decision felt rather rash. During recent in-depth discussions, there appear to be issues that have not been addressed. This change could push people to take classes that they are not ready for, both slowing down the class and disadvantaging the student as a whole. Alongside this, the change pushes students to prioritize their GPA over actual learning needs, which would negatively impact their educational experience. Though there are many pros to this proposal, and this is not to say I'm against them as a whole, it would simply be more fit to get feedback from the community and then revise the policy in an attempt to avoid pitfalls like these. Now, a harsh pivot from class to cards. On the action item of modify the conditions for lights at Cardinal Stadium, students are strongly in favor of increased night games at Cardinal Stadium. In a student government poll of roughly 300 students, over 80% supported more night games. 10 per year is simply too few, and I've read in some BOE campaign statements this is supported by some of you. This change would be a great way to improve school spirit and that classic high school experience for both students and athletes alike. To this, school spirit in the cafeteria has moved beyond just our muffins and pancakes. I would like to comment on the new initiatives of the Food Services Department, as in another 300-person poll, over 90% of students found that high school food has gotten better. We are very grateful to the Domino's hot food improvements and most of all garden catering that has come to the Cardinal Cafe. With BOE and BET elections approaching fast, I would like to wish all the candidates the best of luck and thank you for the hours you put into our schools. I would also like to conclude with a quote from JFK, which is, "If not us, who? If not now, when?" That's all. Have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen. I don't know if anybody is here speaking on behalf of GEA, as I know I know our GEA president is unable to attend this evening and had sent her comments.
I am the GEA.
Oh, you are? Who sent me the comments then? Never mind. I assume that's who it was. Sorry.
Good evening, members of the Board of Ed, Dr. Jones, and members of the community. Yes, my name is Margaret Jackins, and I am the president of the Greenwich Education Association. Now that we've entered budget planning season, I need to make one thing very clear. Regardless of statements made at recent Board of Education retreat meetings, GEA does not in any way support program or budget changes that will result in a loss of FTE. Over the past few years, GPS has lost over 30 FTE, and that is far too many positions. And the people who suffer the most from fewer teachers in the district are the students. Larger class sizes results in less individualized attention because, let's face it, the amount of teaching time doesn't grow. Dr. Jones brought up the possibility of changing the high school schedule from the current 8-block rotating schedule to a 7-block fixed schedule. Again, the students lose. 8 blocks versus 7. That one is easy. Fewer class periods mean fewer course opportunities. A 7-block schedule may seem economically more efficient, but will it be more effective for students? Maybe not. Rotating schedules have been shown to lead to better engagement and deeper learning, a plus for students. Rotating schedules provide better learning opportunities for all students, in that all students do not learn the same way at the same time of day. Rotating schedules have been shown to improve student independence and executive functioning skills. How is that not a win for our students? Perhaps those who will benefit the most from our rotating schedule are those students for whom getting to school is a daily challenge. Post-pandemic, we have seen a marked increase in anxiety of all kinds, but especially school avoidance. A rotating schedule means that students who struggle to get to school on time will not be missing the same class every day. Now let's talk about long-term substitutes. There will always be teachers who need extended leave, be it maternity and child rearing, personal illness, family illness, or any other related situation. Currently, the district policy is to put certified long-term subs in place when a teacher's leave is going to be 40 days or more. With a leave of fewer than 40 days, subs do not have to be certified. We understand that there's now a proposal to lengthen that time frame to 60 days. Frankly, I find that puzzling. This summer during our negotiations, we kept hearing how important it is for us, the certified teachers of Greenwich Public Schools, to be in class whenever possible and not take our sick and personal days. Yet here we are, faced with the possibility of students going even longer without a certified teacher when an extended leave is needed. Where is the logic in that? How will students benefit from even more time without a trained teacher? Daily subs don't write lesson plans, and neither do teachers on leave. So who writes them? And what if it's a special education teacher on leave without a certified substitute? Are those students going to receive the services to which they are entitled? Think about it. Speaking of special education, let's talk about our paraprofessionals. Their presence or lack thereof has a direct effect on both teachers and students. Our paras are essential members of our educational community, helping teachers deliver and students process information vital to their education. The problem is, there are just not enough of them. Now, I was thrilled to learn this week that there are some new para positions that have been approved, and I send my deepest thanks for that. We need them. However, those few new positions don't make up for the considerable number of paras that we truly need. Imagine you're a teacher who has 4 students with IEPs in your classroom. 2 IEPs say that the specified child requires a one-to-one para, and the other 2 IEPs say that the students may share a para. It doesn't take advanced math skills to know that 2 + 1 adds up to 3 paras, which should be in that classroom. However, there's only one, because an administrator has decided that these students can all share the same para. Then, when the teacher raises the question about meeting the IEP requirements that call for those one-to-one paras, they're told that, well, we can change the IEP to meet the availability of the paras that we have. Now, how is that fair to either the teacher or the students? Not to mention the fact that an IEP is a legal document. Right now, Greenwich has great schools, and it's the people that make them great. Unfortunately, great things cost great amounts of money. Think about the cars you drive, the vacations you take, and the houses in which you live. The great ones cost a great deal. Unfortunately, the people who hold the budgetary purse strings here in Greenwich seem disinclined to provide all the funding necessary to keep Greenwich schools great. There are a lot of decisions to be made in the coming weeks, and I urge you to make them carefully and think about how important great schools and their teachers are to the students they teach. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry, Margaret. I see our president of PTA Council back there. Come on up, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Jones, Board of Education members, as you know, my name is Lisa Sylvester, and I'm the PTA Council President representing all 15 schools in Greenwich. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of our board. We know that this is the last regular board meeting for the current board, and we want to thank all of you for your time and commitment to the Greenwich Public Schools. To those leaving the board, your years of dedication and service to the town are deeply valued. So thank you. We understand logistics are difficult, but 2 months into the school year, there are still bus transportation delays and parking issues. The continued presence of buses parked at Western Middle School and now Julian Curtis is disrupting the students' learning environment and school facilities. We strongly urge the board to step in and work with the administration to find a prompt and permanent solution. On the topic of policy changes, it is extremely important that any significant changes be developed with full collaborative input from school-level administrators, staff, teachers, and parents. This is especially true for critical structures like the GHS house system, grade point weighting, and freshman English and social studies. PTAC fully supports keeping the current house structure as is at Greenwich High School. I know current GHS PTA co-president John Fisher will speak more about the GHS PTA stance this evening. We understand enrollment numbers are being looked at, but please keep in mind that enrollment is like a wave, so we ask that you please take a full look at overall numbers before making decisions. We need to ensure that academic excellence is prioritized for all students. To effectively support every student, from those who struggle to those who excel, we need complete transparency. We request the administration provide detailed, disaggregated academic data, specifically including average SBA scores. This is crucial because looking only at growth metrics tells us about our underperforming students, while average scores reflect how effectively we are serving our entire student population. We are incredibly proud of the success and positive momentum at our current priority schools. This demonstrates what we can accomplish with targeted focus. To extend this benefit, we ask you to review and advocate for the inclusion of more schools on the priority list to expand these effective programs. And just to plug a few things while we have so many listening in, this is election time, so please do your due diligence and head to the polls to vote. And while you are there, please support the student bake sales and the 8th grade DC trip bake sales, because we all love and support our community and we need their support. So thank you all for making this district exceptional.
Thank you. Appreciate hearing from these fantastic leaders in town. And now we will be hearing from our public speakers and having community comments. So I will be turning the mic over to our secretary, Ms. Costin.
Hi there. Our first speaker is Alyssa Langell, and I just want to remind all the speakers we have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Alyssa Langell, a Riverside School PTA board member and mother of 2 students at Riverside Elementary. As you all know, when the facilities master plan was unveiled, Riverside was identified as one of the school buildings in greatest need of major upgrades. Nearly a decade later, the building's key issues remain unchanged, particularly around safety, security, accessibility, and lack of space. The Riverside school community is excited about the upcoming renovation project, which, in accordance with the approved ed specs, will bring the building up to code and equip it for 21st century learning, as well as provide room to enlarge small spaces, create additional designated areas for specialized instruction, student support, and large group programming. In short, this will give the building and the more than 500 students and staff members inside it each day what it has needed for many years. We understand the difficult decisions you must make to prioritize the seemingly unlimited wants and needs in a school system as big as ours, particularly within the context of the other major projects currently happening elsewhere in the district. To that end, this board's unanimous approval of the project's ed specs earlier this year is a testament to your commitment to creating the best learning environment for all our children. Our community wants to thank you for continuing to make this project a priority. As you vote on the district's capital plan, we ask that you remain committed to prioritizing this project with the $43 million placeholder for the 27-28 fiscal year. Riverside school parents and neighbors continue to follow this project very closely. And in the coming months, we look forward to a building committee being installed, municipal improvement status received, and design work commencing. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Khan Aslanson. Oh, they may be online.
If you are there, I would suggest you raise your hand.
Are they unmuted and able to speak?
I think you've been elevated to speak.
Oh, hi. Are you able to hear?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, terrific. Hi. Good evening, everyone. This is not Khan. This is Jenny Florenzazi. I'm speaking on Khan's behalf. He's on an airplane. But he and I both would like to share the same message. So I'd like to start off by saying good evening to everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Jenny Florenzazi, and I am a lifelong Greenwich resident. I grew up here, went to public school, played tennis at Greenwich High and other youth and high school sports, and I now lead the Greenwich Girls Flag program here in town. I'm here tonight because I care deeply about the future of youth sports in our town, and especially for our football, tackle football and flag and cheerleading programs as the director of the Greenwich Girls Flag program here in town. And we'd like to ask that you support the installation of lights for our fields. So the Greenwich Youth Football League, or GYFL, and the Greenwich Girls Flag serve more than 1,500 kids across tackle, cheer, and boys and girls flag programs. We are nonprofits that bring together families from every neighborhood and every background, every school in our town. And our mission is simple: to build good character, discipline, teamwork, and confidence through sports. But right now, we are literally running out of daylight. As the fall season gets shorter, our kids lose valuable outdoor time, and our volunteers, most of whom work full-time jobs, struggle to make practices before dark. These are parents and coaches who give up their evenings to mentor our kids and to teach them teamwork, resilience, sportsmanship, and help them grow not just as athletes, but also as people. And without lights, that's becoming harder and harder to do. At the same time, the field space across town is shrinking as more youth sports programs grow. Our kids deserve a chance to be outside, away from screens, and instead exercising and learning and building friendships the way generations before them have done. And this is about more than just our football programs. It's about giving kids their time together in person and doing something positive. And right now, we're at a disadvantage compared to neighboring towns that have lights and stronger partnerships between youth and high school programs. Our players miss opportunities to work with high school coaches, and families start looking elsewhere, to private schools or private facilities, because those offer better access. But not every family can afford those options, and nor should they have to pay extra for their children to have safe, quality athletic experiences in their own hometown. So adding lights, specifically from 5 to 8 p.m., would make an enormous difference. It would let our kids practice safely, let our volunteers
30
coach
seconds.
effectively, and our community make the most of the limited field space without impacting nearby neighborhoods. So this is not just about an investment in football, it's an investment in our kids, in our families, and in the values that make Greenwich such a special community. So I respectfully ask that you prioritize field lighting for the benefit of every child who calls this town home. Thank you so much for your time and everything that you do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Frances Nobe.
Good evening, too short. Good evening, members of the board. This is Frances Wunobe. This year I serve as PTAC Facilities Committee Chair and speak on behalf of the 15 Greenwich Public School PTAs and their facilities representatives. First, a sincere thank you to Ben Branyan, Dan Watson, and their team for the tremendous work they do to keep our schools safe, secure, and strong every day. The PTA reps really appreciated getting a few minutes with them to learn about everyone's roles, responsibilities, and the rigor behind the process. We see that tonight's agenda is packed with capital and facilities projects, and so here I am. Regarding the upcoming major projects in the longer range capital plan, we understand that the GHS pool project is moving into FY28. That's fine, that's great, but we want to be very clear that the Riverside School project must also stay in FY28. Please don't bump Riverside School to make room for other projects. The community has been waiting for years, classrooms remain overcrowded, and it's critical that this commitment, as previously mentioned, remains firm. It's also great to hear about the continued progress at CMS. Thank you for keeping that work on track. Looking at the rest of the agenda, we also urge you to vote in favor of the Hamilton Avenue School HVAC interim funding request. As we all know, the air quality and climate control are not luxuries. They're prerequisites for learning, student, and staff well-being. I see the GHS stadium lighting issue on the agenda, and I'm curious to learn more about it, hoping there's a clear plan to address whatever's causing the concern there. And acknowledging, I did read all the way to the very bottom of Mr. Ting's report, acknowledging the GHS cell tower update. It's good to see that project advancing with the appropriate oversight. That said, we remain deeply concerned about the lack of bus parking and the ripple effects on staff parking, student recess, safety, not to mention the environmental impact. I understand the argument that it's easier to negotiate bus contracts deals when parking isn't bundled in, but at this point, that approach feels short-sighted. The current situation is simply untenable. At the board retreat, you mentioned parking at the Hyatt costs roughly $100 per day per bus, which adds up to about $3 million per year when you include drivers' cars. For comparison, I recently looked up 1-acre commercial lots in the neighboring areas, and I saw a lot in Stanford about $6 million. In just 2 years, the cost of renting equals the cost of buying. It's time to seriously look at permanent solutions with the town. Finally, I'd like to ask whether CMS and WMS are receiving periodic proactive safety checks. Families want to know that regular preventative assessments are happening, not just reactive measures after incidents occur. Thank you for your time, your commitment, and your care to ensure our school spaces stand strong for our students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Our next speaker is John Fisher.
Chair Hirsch, BOE members, Superintendent Dr. Jones, everyone here and everyone online. I'm John Fisher, co-president of the Greenwich High School PTA. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my co-president, Monica Huang, and the GHS PTA board. We're talking about the quote unquote program adjustments that were discussed after everyone's bedtime at the October 9th meeting. Let's start by recognizing that good things are happening with academic achievement and student outcomes at GHS. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. On the agenda tonight is that doesn't count, I'll get to my time. On the agenda tonight is a vote on consolidating 9th grade English and social studies from from 3 levels to 2. As the student leaders said, we don't have an objection to that. It perhaps makes some sense as long as all of the students are appropriately supported at all levels. What doesn't make sense was a discussion on grade realignment and advisor structure and on the GHS scheduling. With Halloween right around the corner, these look like budget cutting masquerading as policy. Replacing the 5 houses with 4 grade level groupings was a regrettable budget cutting idea that incited broad negative public outrage. Ignore that history, and this board will be doomed to relive it. To remain a top-tier high school, we need to figure out how to provide more student counseling and support services, not how to cut 1 out of 5, 20% of the houses that provide those support services. Another terrible idea is changing the current 8-block drop 2 scheduling to a fixed 7 blocks per day. This is also sure to elicit public backlash. We call out the comment that this would, quote, cut total sections approximately 12.5%, which is where most FTE savings come from, unquote. Even dressed up in fancy policy costume, it's walking and it's talking like cost cutting. It's not good policy. In plain English, cutting 12.5% of the sections means more than 1 in 10 classes would be eliminated. It will be much harder for students to get classes they need to follow their chosen curriculum sequence, to get required courses, to get elective courses, to graduate on time, and to have the academic record they need to get into the colleges and the careers that they aspire to. There is no support for anything masquerading as efficiency that's really just reducing or eliminating academics and counseling. Our students need full complement of professionals providing instructional support for the students who need support, providing advanced academic rigor for the students who need that, and boosting student outcomes across the board. That's what a top-tier school does. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you for your public service.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Jessica Von Brockel.
Hello, good evening, and thank you all for everything that you do, and thank you for listening to all of us. I'm going to start with a little background. I'm the parent of 2 GHS graduates. By the way, Jessica Von Brockel, sorry. Former PTA president, a GHS graduate, and before I became an English teacher at the high school about 14 years ago, I worked in the corporate sector. I speak for myself tonight, but I think that some of my thoughts are shared by my colleagues. Like you, I believe that we have to be efficient and responsible as we do all we can to deliver an exciting, rigorous, and supportive program to all students. That's why I'm asking you, please do not make your decisions in haste. I'm concerned that as these major decisions are being made about how our students learn, we're missing the process. Complex and nuanced topics like leveling, weighting, schedules, elimination of courses are being discussed without enough careful study of best practices and without a clear articulation of the purpose of proposed changes and without time for real input from teachers. For example, I'm concerned there's an action item on the levels of freshman English. I'm glad Mr. Mayo was there to respond to the many questions that came up at your retreat, but as board members acknowledged during the retreat, there's still room for input from teachers. I'm not here to propose that I know the best answer, but to support my point that we need a closer look at these big initiatives. I propose that you postpone that action item and take your time on it and the many other major programs that were proposed at that retreat until there's a careful look at the ramifications of each one and more input from teachers. A few examples of things that came up. It's hard to watch sometimes because I know you guys you're awesome, you know so much, but there's so much that we know every day on the ground in the classroom that is just being missed. So a couple of quick things. It's not just English, it's social studies. I don't know if it was accurate 10 years ago that the courses, 113 courses weren't rigorous enough. So I think maybe go back to that data. Rigor versus more work is a really complicated conversation. For a very fluent reader and writer with a high vocabulary, you have rigor and maybe not more work, but an ambitious kid who wants to take a higher leveled, weighted course, it is more work. So you've got a lot of complicated nuances there that you have to take a look at. When you weight the courses, you make them appealing to kids who are ambitious but might not be ready.
30 seconds.
Oh dear. Okay. But I think that that often causes them a lot of stress. And I think that's really important for you guys to think about. Also, the number of the 300 students taking AP, they're not all coming right out of ninth grade. They're also juniors and seniors. And I think you can't have a conversation about 113 and 112 and mixing it all up without talking about STEM skills. And I also think that consolidating 112 and 113 is completely different than consolidating 113 and 113A. And you have to really ask us, the specialists, the people who are in the thick of it, to get the full picture before you go forward with these major types of initiatives.
Time.
Thanks.
I was also going to say, Jessica, if you have more comments that you didn't get to read, you're more than welcome to send them in. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Amy Balish.
Good evening. I'm Amy Bolash, and I am a biology teacher at GHS. We are a data-driven, evidence-based arguments crew of individuals over in the science department, and I am here with a response to some recently shared data. At the Thursday, October 9th Board of Education retreat, Dr. Jones initiated discussion regarding a move to a 7-block non-rotating schedule in which class blocks would be 47 minutes in length. Dr. Jones stated that with this schedule, quote, over an 8-day cycle, you actually gain instructional minutes, so you have about 14% more instructional time, which in things like AP can be positive. This statement is not supported when considering AP science courses and would have the opposite impact if no extra lab blocks or doubles are included in the proposed 7-block schedule. From the first day of school until the Friday before AP exams begin, our 489 AP Science students have 144 instructional blocks at 55 minutes per block for a total of 132 hours. A move to a 7-block schedule without lab blocks would allow 144 days of class at 47 minutes per block for a total of 112.8 hours. This is a reduction of 14.5% instructional time in AP Science classes prior to the beginning of AP exams. This considerable loss in instructional time must also be considered in the context that the College Board requires all AP Science courses to spend at least 25% of instructional time engaged in hands-on laboratory investigations. The current 1,047 students in our honors level courses fare even worse. The impact of a 7-block fixed schedule over the full school year would be a reduction of 15.5% instructional time. On-level and practical courses will see a 3.2% reduction in instructional time. This is raw instructional time lost and does not factor in the other far-reaching impacts this proposed change could mean for our science program. Here are a few examples. It could be challenging for students to fit 2 science courses into their schedule in the same year. 291 students have elected to take 2 science courses this year. Our marine science program, with almost 200 students, would be unable to run their engaging, immersive, and highly popular field experiences, to Todd's point, without laboratory double blocking. The proposed schedule does not feel like a step forward into a 21st century schedule, and is the same schedule that GHS had in the 1970s. Science teachers are not opposed to change. We embrace it every day in our classrooms. The ability to pivot is a science teacher superpower. When it comes to our schedule, teachers share a common goal with our parents, administration, and the Board of Education. A thoughtful schedule that is supported by evidence, includes stakeholder input, and gives our students and teachers the flexibility and creativity they deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alyssa Stack.
Good evening, Board of Ed members and Dr. Jones. My name is Alyssa Stack, and I'm a social studies teacher at Greenwich High School. Since starting there in 1999, I have taught Global Studies 112, 113, and 113A. Before the cut, I was also served for 6 years as the department's instructional coach, so I'm very familiar with our curriculum and instruction. Tonight, I am speaking as a representative of the Social Studies Department on discussion item 6 from the board retreat and the proposed changes to STEM skills. So, what exactly happens in STEM skills? On any given week, one class may focus on SAT prep. For some students, this helps them reach a graduation proficiency. For others, this helps them raise their scores to apply to highly competitive colleges. Another class may focus on passion projects. When a business executive spoke to the Social Studies Department several years ago, he remarked that self-awareness and intellectual curiosity were among the soft skills that he looked for in hiring. And this week, ironically, my STEM skills class has focused on rhetoric. Even with all our available technology, students still need to figure out what they believe in and how to communicate their ideas effectively. And I'm a perfect example of that right now. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Media literacy, time management, executive functioning, study strategies, and so much more. In STEM skills, we teach skills not addressed in other classes. In STEM skills, we teach skills to help all students at all levels excel in all their classes. In STEM skills, we teach students skills they will need in the 21st century job market. Students do not learn these skills in a prescribed order because teachers, as professionals, determine which skills their students need and when. Planning is a reciprocal process, as one of my mentors said. But by the end of the year, students at all levels have elevated their critical thinking, reading, and writing skills after the entirety of all their STEM skills lessons. By voting to save STEM skills, you will preserve this special program that distinguishes GHS from our peers and helps our students succeed in high school, college, and beyond.
30 seconds.
A lot has changed since I started teaching in 1999, but a few fundamentals remain. Our graduates still need to read, write, and think. And so our students still need STEM skills. Thank you for your time and service.
Our next speaker is Kara Peters.
Another STEM skills proponent. Good evening, members of the board. I'm here tonight to speak for the preservation of our STEM skills program, the interdisciplinary writing and research labs that are a cornerstone to Greenwich High School academic experience. If you take away STEM skills from our students, you will be taking away our writing and research labs, labs in which we conference with students, we pinpoint their areas of need, and hone in on grammar skills, study skills, speaking and listening skills, and media literacy skills. Students also practice responsible, effective uses of technology. They learn to synthesize multiple sources of information from diverse media formats, evaluating the credibility and accuracy of each source. They even have the opportunity to create, develop, and present passion projects on topics of their choice. You would be taking away individualized instruction in reading and writing at a time when budget cuts have swelled class sizes and students can choose levels now that require extra support. This is the class that provides the time and support. You would be taking away one of the only interdisciplinary spaces where English and social studies truly meet. A hallmark of Greenwich High School has always been our collaborative community of learners in 9th and 10th grade humanities. You would be taking away a learning environment that helps our most struggling students find success and our most advanced students reach their full potential. And I fear our community is so misinformed about STEM skills that you are considering capriciously cutting it. I'll give you 3 reasons why eliminating STEM skills would be a mistake. First, our students are ready for college classes because of the work they do in STEM skills. We teach them to write at a college level before they even apply. Alumni return year after year to tell us the reason I'm so confident in my writing skills today is because of the work I did in STEM skills, Mrs. Peters. Learning to write well takes time, and this is skill development that sticks. Second, STEM skills is a test preparation engine. We don't teach to the test, we teach beyond it. The PSAT and SAT reading and writing scores at Greenwich High are very strong, and we've exceeded our benchmarks for SPED students in reading. That growth didn't happen by accident. It happened because we built a system that works, and STEM skills is central to it. Third, STEM skills develops the transferable and professional skills that colleges and employers are desperate to have. Time management, executive functioning, public speaking, and collaborative problem solving. These are extras. These are not extras, they are essentials. When you remove STEM skills, students won't stop doing the work, they'll just do it without support. Sophomores will still have to write their 10-page research paper, but without STEM skills, they'll lose an entire unit of American history to make space for it. Freshmen will
30 seconds.
will lose the foundational skills needed to transition to high school learning, along with the intervention, support, and extended time required to succeed. STEM skills is not a luxury, it's not an add-on, it's a lab, the humanities counterpart to science labs. It's where struggling learners receive close reading support, where we deepen learning from our academic classes, and where we teach writing that's meant to be read, shared, and critiqued, not just graded. We know the work, we live it, and we know what's being proposed will hurt our kids. Please don't make these decisions without us. Include us in the conversation, and let us keep working toward our shared goal, preparing our students to thrive.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jackie Homan.
Good evening. The Freedom of Information Commission ruled yesterday that the Actions Board Democrats Karen Hirsch, Laura Costin, Sophie Coven, and Kathleen Stowe took at the October 21st meeting last year, the sham emergency meeting where Democrats pulled their coup, have been declared null and void. Hirsch, Costin, Coven, and Stowe not only conspired to illegally install their own preferred candidate, Jen Behet, into the open Republican seat against the will of board Republicans, but after that, board Democrats held sham officer elections and conducted board business, taking votes for nearly a year with an illegitimate BOE member. The preliminary ruling came out 13 days ago, so surely the Board of Education and school knew the final decision was imminent. And yet, for some reason, you're all sitting here pretending what you did was legit, continuing the charade. Even the imposter board member is here. Acting Chair Hirsch. Is it BOE policy to reject a ruling from the Freedom of Information Commission? Is it also BOE policy to deny the online meeting link to a sworn-in board member, Paul Capiali? You seem to have had no problem providing that link to an illegitimate board member for nearly a year, but since your side of the Town v. Town lawsuit doesn't think Capiali is legit, you seem to think it's okay to deny him the ability to participate in meetings. Why not afford the board Republicans the same privilege you gave to yourselves? Why the hypocrisy? Also, when I go onto the school's website, I see Hirsch listed as chair, Behet as vice chair, and Costin as secretary. Is it BOE policy to knowingly post sham officer appointments and misinformation on an official government page, and at the same time restrict information on a sworn-in BOE member? Also, I just want to say to you, Ms. Hirsch, Ms. Behet, Ms. Costin, Ms. Coben, and Ms. Stowe, that what you did was absolutely disgusting and despicable. And I don't know how you sleep at night after you attempted to screw over the good people of Greenwich, your own neighbors, by installing a crony and a blatant power grab. Then you had the audacity to sit there for nearly a whole year and pretend like you had the moral high ground despite the illegitimately appointed member and your sham officer elections. And then after the preliminary ruling came out, instead of apologizing, you doubled down. You should all resign in shame, except for Ms. Behet, because I don't know how you resigned from a position to which you were never legally appointed in the first place. And in addition to apologizing for your outrageous behavior, you, the board Democrats, should cover all of the legal expenses the town has incurred on both sides, because the tax-paying citizens of Greenwich absolutely do not want to get stuck with the bill for your now failed coup. Shame on you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jessica Puchas. Oh,
Good
is she-
evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Vice President of Membership for GEA, and I want to speak about a critical issue impacting our classrooms and ultimately our students, the proposal to amend Board Policy 4121, which would delay the hiring of long-term certified substitutes for extended absences from 40 days to 60 workdays, essentially another full month of uncertified coverage. When a classroom lacks a consistent certified substitute teacher, the effects ripple far beyond one temporary vacancy. Instructional continuity is disrupted. Lessons become fragmented, pacing is lost, and student learning suffers. Certified subs bring the planning and assessment experience necessary to sustain academic progress. Without them, our teachers and students experience ongoing instructional interruption. The impact is even more serious for our special education students. Without certified coverage, legally required services such as IEP and 504 supports often go unmet. This places the district at risk of noncompliance and undermines the trust families place in our system to provide equitable access to instruction for every learner. To fill these gaps, our certified teachers and specialists are frequently pulled from their own duties, prep periods, and team meetings to provide coverage. The result is lost planning time, canceled specials, split classes, reduced small group instruction, and diminished intervention services. Teachers must spend additional time supporting uncertified daily subs, providing plans, materials, and even setting up classrooms. This practice strains our staff and weakens the overall system, not just the classrooms left uncovered. The human toll is equally significant. Each time teachers are asked to step in and cover another class, morale declines. Educators are already operating at full capacity, feeling undervalued and overextended. This erodes collective efficacy, increases burnout, and threatens teacher retention in a profession already struggling with shortages. As shared with the board over the summer, staff perceive these situations as a lack of administrative support and student prioritization. Vast research by Marzano, Dawes, Miller, Mangan, and more consistently show that faculty trust, staff morale, and teacher expertise are key drivers of student success. To bring this policy change forward tonight signals a step away from partnership and from keeping students at the center of decision-making. Finally, there is a reputational cost. Parents notice when classrooms lack consistency. Students feel it. The perception of instability undermines community confidence and distracts from our shared mission of providing high-quality education to every child in Greenwich. In short, delaying the hiring of long-term certified subs may save short-term dollars, but it does so at the expense of long-term academic, legal, and human outcomes. Ensuring qualified, consistent coverage for extended absences is not just a logistical matter, it is a commitment to the integrity of teaching and learning in our district. I respectfully urge the board to vote against this proposed policy change. Thank you for your time and your continued commitment to supporting our teachers, our students, and excellence of Greenwich Public Schools.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Randy Caravella.
Randy, okay. Randy, you've been elevated to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Randy Caravella. I'm one of the founding members of the Greenwich Athletic Foundation. I'm here tonight to ask for your help. to correct a mistake that has limited the rights of our community and the opportunities available to our young people. Right now, one individual has been allowed to control access to the athletic fields that should belong to everyone. That's not right. That's not how Greenwich should operate. This isn't about lacrosse, football, soccer. It's about our kids, all of them, and their needs for fields that support teamwork, friendship, and lifelong benefits that come from playing sports together. Participation in athletics teaches discipline, respect, leadership, and community. It gives our kids a place to belong. And yet, because of a restricted settlement, our fields, the public fields, are being held back from the very purpose they were meant to serve. The Board of Education has the authority to fix this. You can, and you should, authorize a town attorney or an independent attorney retained by this committee to take legal action to rescind the restrictions and restore the town's rights. Doing so will not only send a clear message that this community stands behind its youth, but also encourage a fair and reasonable negotiation with the private beneficiary of the restriction. The public sentiment is clear. People across Greenwich believe this limitation is unjust. It was a mistake in a prior negotiation and needs to be corrected. Our children deserve better. Our coaches and schools deserve better. And our town deserves leaders who will act in the interest of the many, not the will of the one. Please take up this issue, put it on your agenda, and let's move forward together for our students, for our families, and for the community spirit that defines Greenwich. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Randy. Our next speaker is Kimberly Steinhorn.
Hi, thank you for having me. Good evening, Dr. Jones, Board of Ed, Greenwich community, my fellow GEA members, and the students of GHS, the most important stakeholders. I've been at Greenwich High School for 20 years, proudly serving this amazing community. The 48 block rotating schedule A through H at GHS is an effective way for students to take a wide variety of classes while earning the required 25 credits for graduation. 4 years ago, I served on a year-long schedule evaluation committee when Dr. Jones first proposed the idea of changing our schedule. The rigorous schedule analysis process with Dr. Jonathan Costa, an external advisor from EdAdvance paid with money from our GPS funds, determined that our current schedule provided students with the most choices and opportunities to take classes that are challenging, exciting, and required at GHS. One thing the schedule provides for students is opens and learning centers. Those blocks are invaluable. Time for our heavily scheduled students, such as musicians and athletes who need to complete their homework, students with 504s and IEPs who are legally granted extended time. The majority of teachers and students would say that the schedule serves them well. My current students, who actually asked me, please, you need to name us, they wanted to tell you that teenagers get bored very easily and they need a rotating schedule. This comes from Jackie, Anthony, Enrique, Julieta, Ulysses, Arnold, Marvin, Edwin, Gaku, Valentina, Lizbury, Raphael, Issei, Maite, and Nayeli, to name a few. They don't want this schedule to change. They said, with opens and days where class drops, we have time to do homework or study for a test and hang out with our friends. They implored me to tell you, we need the electives: music, photography, theater, design, culinary arts, video production, and so on. One student, Jackie, she even said, look out, I'm starting a petition. We need to keep the schedule the way it is. Having a stagnant 7-block schedule does not fuel the need for creativity and novelty, which has been studied as a contributing factor to teenage success. In a community like Greenwich, one that we love, it breaks my heart to think that you would put the financial bottom line ahead of student success and student choice. Listen to the students before making a capricious decision about changing the schedule. Please keep the schedule the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Maria Buono.
Thank you. Good evening. members of the board, Dr. Jones. I'm Maria Buono, and I've been a mathematics teacher at GHS since 2001. I am a GEA leader at GHS, and I coach the CMS and GHS Science Bowl teams. I do yield my time to the experts who have already spoken this evening, so thank you very much.
Thank you to all of our speakers. Ms. Buono was our last speaker, so we are moving on to monthly reports, and that begins with the superintendent's report. Take it away, Dr. Jones.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, if you weren't able to make it today, it was the JC Parade of Nations, their UN parade. It was just fabulous. 52 different countries were represented, and I think it was the best one yet. Also, just want to note that K-5 brand new report card is going out. And, we have a video to help parents understand how to utilize that. But I encourage you to also look at the Spanish version, because it is impressive how AI is helping us to be able to communicate with our families. And we do have the citation on there that it's AI generated, because I do not speak Spanish. But if you see the video, it truly is amazing, because your mouth is moving like I'm speaking. And I wanted to make sure it was really big on the front, because I don't want people coming up to me and speaking to me in Spanish. But we're going to be doing more of that to help our families. Also, just a special thanks to those who serve on the PDAC, which is our evaluation committee. They're doing a lot of work. We had an update to the website this week for teachers, which was great. I'll also just mention that the BET did meet on the guidelines, and I know the meeting went until about midnight. The guidelines where they're sitting right now, they're not published. So we really don't understand exactly what they did, but we know that they're at 3.25%. Which would be about 3.7 million reduction to not cover our contracted costs again. And the two big drivers are transportation and salaries. And just those two items alone put us at about 4.9%. So I'm hoping that maybe it'll change by the time they're published, but we will see. I do want to mention, somebody was asking about Riverside or mentioned the Riverside Building Committee. We did make that request at the end of last year. We're still waiting on the first selectman to put that forward to the RTM. So we'll go back and check on that again. It's moving a little bit slower than we thought that we would. And as I was sitting here, I was thinking Margaret and I can probably do a better job of working together before on the board agenda, because things like policy can sometimes be misunderstood. And so I think we'll work on that, Margaret, but that 40 to 60 days is just matching the state law. And the reason we want to make that change, it's not to have daily subs in classrooms when teachers are out for 40 days or 60. But sometimes what happens is we have a French teacher who goes out on, for 2 months, and we don't have a certified sub that can step in and teach French, but we may have a daily sub that's not certified that actually was born and raised in France and actually can keep the class going. And that happens more often than you realize, especially in areas like math, where somebody's highly capable of teaching the math, but they're not certified. So we want to take advantage of the law, because otherwise at 40 days, we're pulling the French teacher out that was actually speaking French with the kids and putting in another sub that doesn't speak French. So that's really all that is. Our goal is not to have daily subs in there every day for 40 days. I think that's enough. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And now anyone question? No? Laura?
I was just wondering, because we keep hearing about bus parking. Is there any progress?
No. I mean, I'm just being honest. We've looked at over 40 places. We have also looked at acreage. Within driving distance. So that is on our radar as well with the real estate developer. It's been much more difficult, I think, than anybody anticipated. We get very close, and then the developers will just change their mind. We still have a few places in play. But again, we are also looking at acreage, because that is, another option.
Kathleen, I saw you had a hand up.
Sorry, first I was going to ask about busing, but then I had one other question. The K-5 report cards, I no longer have a child in elementary school, but is there any value? And I can't believe I'm going backwards, because I love how you're using AI, and I mean, I use that in my work every day. So believe me, I'm a big proponent of it. But for those that aren't as technologically savvy, is there any value to also sending it via mail? Still, do you think I'm crazy for asking this question? But I feel like, okay, Sophie seems to not think I'm crazy.
No, I'm just going to say I agree with you. I'm concerned. Over the years, I've heard about so many parents who have challenges with logging into Aspen and then have challenges with finding the report card. And I feel like it would make sense to send a hard copy home at the end of the school year, which is what they used to do.
I think the report card itself is being sent home, or is it only digital?
Which I
kinda-
feel like is fine for like the middle school and high school, because frankly, we have our children helping us at that point. But I do worry for those like I loved those elementary school comments that you got from the teachers. And if someone's missing that because they don't know how to log into Aspen.
I think
feel
if maybe we try it this first time and then let's survey our parents and ask them. And let's get feedback, because again, we're having to run so efficient everywhere. We don't have a print shop anymore. We're trying to cut mailing costs. So, I really, the vast majority, now I do know we have at least one Title I school that probably will still print for sure, because they tend to not have access, the same level of access. But we'll go back and talk about it.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Jones? Anyone? No? Okay. Laura?
Regarding the buses, is there any way to spread them out so that, because we just keep hearing it everywhere I go, even like the food store, the parents at Western are asking, why can't we spread them around, maybe to Eastern and Western? Why does it all have to be borne by one school that then doesn't have access to their green space for the students? So I just figured I would ask.
Yeah, it has been tough, but I think there's also been a misunderstanding that all the buses were there. Since the beginning of the year, we've also had buses at the old Greenwich train station. We worked with the town. That's where our smaller buses are, because you can't park the long buses there. We moved buses maybe 2 weeks ago. Actually, JC has some, and it's tough. We've had buses since the very beginning of the year at Parkway. So we're actually east-west, where we are around the district, but we're very limited on most of our sites with the amount of buses and teacher parking. And then you have to have parking when they're in their bus for the driver themselves. And that's why, like, now we also have the drivers for Western. They actually park at one of the commuter lots and take a shuttle to Western to actually access their buses.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Cody?
I just think it's worth pointing out, as I heard the comment was that we were being short-sighted with the bus approach. I think it's almost exactly the opposite of that, in that the short-sighted approach is to say, oh, there's temporarily this challenge, therefore, undo everything. But it's important to recognize that when we were dealing with the old bus company, the reason that they scrapped the existing contract we had with fixed pricing is they felt like they had a monopoly pricing power over us. And the long-term implication of sticking with that would be exorbitant price increases every year, because we wouldn't be able to do anything else. So Ben and I think the whole team, they've spent, I think it's painful. It's a lot of work. It's probably not their favorite use of time. But once we get to a solution being focused on the long-term impact, it's going to be so much better, because we won't be subject to monopoly price increases. So I think it's short-term pain, long-term gain. And it's just important and also they're really on top of it. I mean, you could almost do a trivia game with Ben of name any random lot within X miles of here, and he can tell you the story about it. And I'm sure that it will, it seems like something that will be worked out in the medium term.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Jones? Sophie?
I just had sort of an update. I believe that actually they did have a meeting about the Riverside Building Committee today. So I just, for people who are tracking it, I don't have all the details, but I know we are making progress, and I believe that they had a meeting about it today and have gotten members organized. So that's pushing forward. So hopefully people can breathe a sigh of relief on that, And I agree with Cody, by the way. I think necessity is the mother of invention, and I'm glad we're tackling the bus issue.
Anyone else? No, I was going to say, I do, the amount of work that has gone into busing this year, it's the perfect storm. I know we were talking about it at a lot of other meetings, but it was a perfect storm with the reduction to our, the cut to our budget, meaning we had to, make a lot of changes. We changed school start time. We had to change buses, busing companies. We had an entirely new transportation system put in. We had a new transportation manager. So it was unfortunate that all of those changes happened at once. And I think we are trying our best, and the administration is trying our best to hear and listen and manage all of these issues as they crop up on a daily basis. And just know if you've sent an email, they are being read, they are being heard, and we are trying to make adjustments. Trust us when we tell you it's not in anybody's best interest to have all of our buses parked at our schools, and we are doing everything in our power or humanly possible to try to find a better location for our buses and our drivers that's safe and provides what's needed for the drivers, the buses, and our students and families. So with that, does anybody else have questions for Dr. Jones? If not, I'm happy to move on to reports of officers, committees, and liaisons. Anyone? Okay. Do any of our board members have a report for a committee that they, or as a liaison? Kathleen?
So teacher contract, Michael Joseph, Sophie and I spent a lot of time over the summer with Margaret and some of her team. Rather than going to the beach, we spent a lot of time at Havemeyer. But the good news is that sort of at the final hour, we did come to a stipulated agreement as we were entering arbitration. We have been doing the rounds with the RTM committees. We went to the BOC. And then we spent some time at the Finance and the Education Committee. And then on Monday, we will be presenting the final contract for a vote. The sort of numbers that have come into the committee have been all over the place, but effectively, they're either sort of voting to postpone or they reject it, which means that they're in favor of it. So we'll see how things go on Monday night, but obviously I'll be there as a proponent for it. Hopefully Margaret will be as well. And we will take it from there. But as a board and as a town, for the teachers and for our students, I think Michael Joseph, Sophie and I were very happy where we ended up.
Okay, Sophie?
Just wanted to clarify when people have sort of been opposed to it, they seem to be opposed to the process, not to the outcome. So that's just an important thing to clarify. No one seems to be unhappy with the terms of the contract. There's just been some questions about how the negotiation, mediation, and arbitration process works, which is more of an issue of what the state statute allows for.
Thank you for that clarification and information from both of you. And I know I said this last week, but I'll say it again. I know Michael Joseph isn't here, but I wanted to thank you guys for committing so much of your time this summer. No, he's not online. Thank you guys so much for all the time and energy you spent this summer working on that, having spent every summer working on some committee or another. I know what that means, and I wanted to thank our head of GEA as well, because we love working together and supporting our students. So thank you all. Does anybody else have an update from committee? I know, Laura, you're going to be discussing during CMS. I know budget, we'll be talking about budget time. No, anyone else? Okay. I will say I met with the high schools, XCOM with their committee, student government, and it was, as always, a fantastic meeting. And I did want to note, I know Gabe Elzai had mentioned they do a lot of student polls on things, and one of the things that they had polled their students for were their thoughts on school start time. And he said, it was a good 50%. This was very at the beginning of the school year, 50% really actually preferred the earlier school start time. They're going to do another hopeful update now that the kids have had a little bit more time in school to see how they feel. But the majority of students that responded had said that it's a little early, but they actually appreciate that they actually have more time after school when they're awake and alert to be able to do sports, to do, have their jobs after school, to get their homework done and have more time with their families at the end of the day. And whether school starts earlier or later, they're still going to bed at the same time. This actually allows them to get stuff on earlier and go to bed earlier in order to wake up earlier. They said it really didn't change anything for them, the students, I guess, that responded. So I was really pleased to hear that, and I did ask if he would mind doing another survey on that closer to, to the middle of the year to see how kids still felt about that. Because I do think it's important that we hear back from them, much in the way we were hearing from our public speakers tonight about getting input from staff and so forth. When we make some of these decisions going forward, they also talked to us about the changes for weighting in AP, and we had a very healthy discussion on that. And there were a lot of students who had pros and a lot of students who had cons on that. And we certainly did say we will keep hearing feedback from that, because it's we made the decision now, but if it really is not supporting the students, we will certainly look at that again. So all in all, like I said, I think our students are really taking the lead in their student government and trying to make changes and creating an incredible community at the high school going forward. So I was really pleased to be able to sit there and discuss that with them. So I think that's it. Are there any other committee updates for anyone? No? Anyone? Bueller? Okay. Also, if you did hear them mention the Harlem Wizards that they're having come in November, I was gonna say, I think they're doing that and having staff and others in the community participate and compete against the Harlem Wizards. So it's not just a student teacher event, it's for the whole community to come and participate and watch. So I highly recommend that. When more information comes out, we'll share that with you as well. It'll be an interesting and fun experience, I'm sure. So with that, I believe we can move on to action items. And the first item we have is the capital budget. I will make a motion to put this on the table so that we can discuss it. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the FY 27 capital budget as presented in the amount of $17,823,000. Do any of the budget committee want to second that, or no? Cody? Okay. So now it's on the table to discuss. I will hand this over to our budget chair and other members of our budget committee.
I just want to say that I feel very lucky to have this as my last capital budget to approve and not next year, because this is an easy one and the future years are going to be lively conversations. But I think this is about as uncontroversial as it gets. It's easier to say when the number's low. But there's nothing, we've already gone through this a few times. I don't think there's anything new to report. Thank the heavens that the pool issue got delayed, because I would not want to be involved in that one. Good luck to you all.
Yeah, well said. I think this is probably the lowest capital budget in the 8 years that I've been on the board that I'll ever sort of put forth and approve. So, go forth, but I wish I could help with the next year, because I think that the pool is important. But I will leave it as all I can do is vote on the one for this year.
I know, Ben, is there anything you want to go through anything, or is there anything you'd like to add? I know we've seen it third time. I'm just asking. I'm offering the opportunity.
Like third time, still no questions?
Third time no charm. I just put it forward. Does anybody else have specific questions? I do feel like we've sort of gone down the road with this before, so. Yeah, I saw a couple of $5 things along the way. No, I'm just kidding. Anyone else have thoughts, comments, questions that they'd like to make? If not, then I'll put it forward to, either of our chairs to call for, our chair or other budget members to call for a vote.
Yeah, sure. I just call for a vote.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
want to give
all
the
in-
opportunity.
All in favor?
Okay, looks like that passes.
Yeah.
Michael
and
just is not online.
Is Mike?
Mike is not online now. That is 6-0, and it passes. So thank you. And thank you again to all of our budget committee members for all the work that they've done, for our chair, especially those who are also going to be stepping off. We appreciate the work that you've done, and how well you have led us in the budgetary discussions and looking deep and dark into all the corners for every penny we could find in the sofa cushions. So I appreciate that. So next up is the Central Middle School Building Committee Plan Completion Review, and I'd make a motion, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. So I'll let Laura, if there's a motion to be specifically made, it's an action item, so.
Well, I do have two motions, but I do want to give the floor to our.
Nope, you have to make
Okay.
a motion to put it on the table to have
So
any
both
discussion.
motions?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you can do one and then we have to discuss that particular one, or you can do both and then we can discuss both at the same time.
Okay, well, the first motion is a motion to authorize the certification of final plans and documents for the Central Middle School project, state project number 057-0114N, like Nancy.
I'll second that. You'll have to send me the exact wording that you have.
Happy to. And I will read the next motion because they are sort of related. Authorize the superintendent of the Greenwich Public Schools and the chair of the Greenwich Board of Education to certify the Greenwich Central Middle School Building Committee's approval of the final plans, project manual, and professional cost estimate for State Project 057-0114N, Central Middle School Phase 3 of 3.
Anybody else want to second that? Okay, Sophie?
Okay. And we do have our project professionals and our building committee chair here to talk us through this very robust package of documents.
Okay.
Good evening, Board of Education and members with the red t-shirts on. I feel a little bit lost, but way to go. I am Joe Rossetti, chairperson of the Central Middle School Building Committee, and Laura Costin is also my colleague on the committee. And I have Steve Martocchio from SLAM Collaborative, our architect, lead project manager here to discuss this issue with us, and Jose Cardoza from JLL, the owner's representative, day-to-day management of the project. So what we have tonight is really pretty straightforward, is the presentation of what we call the Plan Completion Review number 3 for our FF&E package and our technology package for the new school. And it's been about a year that we've been working on this part of or phase, if you will, of the construction of the project. And that we've had a subcommittee of a design review committee that's been looking at the FF&E, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, benches, chairs, desks, tables, those sort of things, bookshelves that go into the school, and also the technology. And our committee on October 14th, I think, right, Jose? Yep. A couple of weeks ago, just about, approved the release of this to go to the state to get their approval, which we hope to do in, I think it's November 4th or 5th. 5th. And then once we do that, be able to go out and bid the work and get it purchased. So it's all ready for the August opening in 2026. And our building committee approved this this submission unanimously. So hopefully you all do as well. Thank you. And I'm going to let Steve Martocchio kind of talk a little bit about the process.
I am logged in as Kemp Morehart right now. I can raise my hand if we need to change name. That one's me. I'm going to share screen. Want to present to you folks our executive summary presentation. You guys, I think, have seen this, but to those on the phone or on the call, this is sort of how we got to where we are. This is how we pulled together our information to create our bid package for this. It's also worth pointing out, I have Amanda Hastings Shea, who is our interior designer, on the call, and Kemp Morehart, who is the principal of our project. As we worked our way through this process, we worked very specifically with Principal Healy and his users. We went sort of space by space, room by room, And what we did is we converted in our early construction documents a bunch of placeholder elements in rooms into real furnishings and equipment. Talking with them in design gave us a good idea of things we put in place. But getting down to the nitty-gritty of these meetings, we're making sure we got in the documents exactly what they needed. So some of what you see here on the screen are examples of sheets that we use to get there. So we would take a space and then we'd give them sort of a survey list of items that were in that space. From that space, we would sort of get to the photographic element you see in the bottom right-hand corner to help us choose and select finishes, heights, sizes, styles. As we worked our way from one space to the next space, we got further into very specific colors, how a chair might function, how a round table versus a rectangular table might work. And we did this with each of the user groups very successfully, met a bunch of different times, answered a lot of questions in between. And at each meeting, we got a little bit further along our path to be able to get to the documentation phase. Can see more examples of colors, rug selections. Getting into now the specialty spaces like a media center and cafeteria furniture, outdoor equipment, spaces that will become huddle spaces or study areas outside of classrooms. Again, a lot of this was just to convey to them, here's the options, here's what we thought, what do you think? We got down into wood shop, family consumer sciences, art rooms. So we covered all of our spaces, band, orchestra. From there, we're able to then create the documents that we're putting in front of you and asking you to sign off on. So what we will put down to the state is a set of construction documents, which are the drawing aspects. And then we will get into two specifications. One is going to cover the public bid portion of this phase and the privately bid portion of the phase that is pulled right off of the state contract. It's advantageous for the project to use as much of the state contracted pre-negotiated pricing as we can for the project. That allows us to guarantee an estimate to you guys what the value is as we head towards this. And it minimizes a lot of questions and fluctuations in prices. It's sort of a controlled set. So about 85% of the furniture and equipment and technology is getting pulled off of the state contract for this project. Leaves a very narrow scope that is just open to public bid for us. And that allows us to feel comfortable as we go to this phase where we feel like we are under budget. What we're asking from you guys tonight is to take a look at those construction documents. We can dive into those if you want. So you know the things that we put in there are these space by space requirements. We clarify for the state that we've got all of the ADA clearances that are important to the building code. We tag each element so it talks from construction document back to the specifications that the bidders are using. Everything is very clear. State doesn't let us do it any differently. We find that when we work with the state as much as we do, we know what they're looking for. Bidders understand what it is that they're putting a price to. That's where we're at. If anyone would like us to jump into a spec or a drawing, we're able to do so. Or if you'd have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Looked like you had a lot of good options for chairs. I hope all the committee members had an opportunity to sit in each one.
We
You
did.
know?
We actually had some chairs at the school at one point for everybody to sort of see and take a look at. So it was one of those things we were able to handle some physical samples, bring them to the school and make sure people knew what we were sort of asking of them.
Perfect. Comfortable, but not swivelly, because if
Important.
swivelly, you know what's going to
That's
happen.
right. Very important.
No attention paid to the drawing board. See, the teachers are nodding. Does anybody have any specific questions? Anyone? Bueller? No?
Kemp or Amanda, I'm not sure if either of you have anything to add to the conversation.
Not me. Thank you, Steve. Great presentation.
And
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I will add that, you know, we worked with the principal very closely, so it was really great to have his support through this. He has been a great liaison between us and the faculty, so that was a huge part of this. I give a lot of credit to him for making this a really smooth transaction to get all of this documented and figured out. So Principal Healy has been great through this whole process.
And Amanda is our rock star. She's been through this 100 times on public schools and really knows how to make sure that we get from the users all the answers we need. She was excellent in this phase, and certainly the help of Principal Healy was, as she said, couldn't have gotten there without him. He wrangled the troops and really got us home.
If I could comment a little bit on it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. As I was part of the subcommittee for the design review committee, and we did see a lot of interaction between, call them Principal Healy staff and the other key members. And there was a lot of iterations and pushback and no, we want this, we want that. So there was good, solid discussion and over really last a year.
Yeah, it was, I mean, over a course of a year and specifically about a 4.5-month stretch to get us from placeholders to documentation.
So there wasn't just like, okay, this is what we're going to do and get everybody to vote. No, there's like, we don't like that, make a change. So there was a good dialogue. And so
it's great.
Hopefully it'll be the best for everybody.
Do I need to make the motion again since?
No, we had the motion, but I just didn't know if there was anything you wanted to add.
There's nothing I want to add, so I think we just move along.
Anyone? Okay. Well, then I'll let you, since you're the building, if you want to call the question. Do you want to do them one at a time or?
I'll do them one at a time. I would like to move that I motion to authorize the certification of final plans and documentation for Central Middle School project, state project number 057-0114N. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, and
6-0.
6-0 said, the second motion is a motion to authorize the superintendent of the Greenwich Public Schools and the chair of the Board of Education to certify that the Greenwich Central Middle School Building Committee's approval of the final plans, project manual, and professional cost estimate for state project 057-0114N, Central Middle School Phase 3 of 3. All in favor?
That is also unanimous at a 6-0.
Thank you all.
Okay, we are now going to be moving on to the HVAC interim request, and I'm going to make the motion to authorize the administration to request an interim appropriation for Hamilton Avenue HVAC. Do I have a second? Okay, Sophie, anybody have questions, comments? Mr. Ben, do you want to have anything to discuss?
No, hopefully the packet's relatively straightforward. We're very happy that the preliminary construction design and then our 50% construction cost came in incredibly close. So we're happy. We're on target with the schedule, and if all goes well through the funding, we should have this complete by the fall of next year.
This sounds good to me. Does anybody have any questions, comments? I know this has been presented before. It's nice to see that the cost for some things came down, even though we had to add a little something in there. So it's win-win in that regards. Anyone? No? Then I'm happy to make a motion to call the question. I mean, well, I made the motion, but calling the question. All in favor? Okay. Again, 6-0. Now comes the fun topic for the night. I'm going to make a motion for our next agenda item. Motion to request the proposed modifications to conditions placed on Cardinal Stadium by the RTM approved municipal plan number 485, PZBA appeal number 8697, and planning and zoning final site approval number 2278. Is there a second? Kathleen Stowe? Okay. Questions, comments?
Can
Ben,
Dr. Jones walk
Tony?
through it,
Yeah,
or
I
Ben
know. I
walk
was going to
us
see
through?
who's going to.
I'm going to let Ben walk you through the document, but just as a reminder, I do want to say thank you to the town legal. Rose Beretta was was assigned this back in March. And so, you know, it's been almost 9 months of work, and Ben did a great job, I think, structuring it tonight so you can see what the legal process is. And that's really what we're talking about tonight, is just process.
So Ben, do you want to lead us and those watching through this? Because I know there's a lot of interest.
No, absolutely. If you decide to take action tonight, on page 1 of the packet, there's 3 relatively lengthy motions that we would like you, if you feel comfortable, you can certainly take them all in one fail vote, but those are the 3 motions on the top of the page. But I think everyone recognizes what we're trying to accomplish. Just to manage everyone's expectations, this will be a very lengthy process. It's a very linear process. What we need to go through is, you're the first step. And then if we're successful at the RTM, then it's the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals, then it's Planning and Zoning, then it's Board of Selectmen, and then it's the court. In that order, and you need to go through each one successfully to move on to the next one. I would really have you focus in on page 3 of the document. I think that's the most central piece of it. That's the 6 conditions that are approved by the RTM through the MI process. In condition number 3, I'll wait for the page to show. Thanks, Mike. Condition number 3 really is the one that is the one we're trying to have relief from, and that's where the RTM approved MI from December of 2000. Had the limited of 10 games, and we're proposing to have flexibility with all of the sports listed on the left-hand column. All 3, actually 4 pages here are set up on the left-hand column would be what's currently there, and then what we're asking to be modified. We really attempted to have as minimum change if possible, but really number 3 is the biggest one that will flow through. So on page 3 is the 6 recommendations for the MI. Then if you go to the page 4, we then cross-reference what Planning and Zoning and the Board of Appeals did, and you can see really the PZB&A addressed both MI comments, and then Planning and Zoning incorporated what the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals put in. So we attempted to just cross-reference those 2. But I think if you just hone in on the MI application approval, and then page 5, 6, and 7 is what Planning and Zoning. So Planning and Zoning had 14 conditions. Most of them do not apply because they're mostly related to the application that was before them in 2002. But we went through there to make sure, again, the biggest issue with P&Z is the number of games, but also P&Z put conditions on, as well as PZB&A put conditions on that the lights will be removed, and we're asking those to be that requirement to be eliminated. Modern technology, I think, no longer requires that, and it puts additional stress on the asset. The last thing I'll point out is just on page 9 is the terms of the court stipulation. We purposely left those blank. But the 3 relevant stipulations in the court document is 2, 3, and 5. But if we're successful going through you tonight, the RTM, the Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning and Zoning, the Board of Selectmen, will come back before we go forward with the final step, which would be to the Superior Court. And then all the rest of the documents are just the source documents that pertain to what we attempted to summarize in the matrix.
Okay, go ahead. Did you have anything else to add, Ben?
I'm good. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there's a lot there, but we tried to hone in just on those, what we're trying to make the minimum changes, but number 3 is a big one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I know I had a question. Cody, did you have one? Oh, no, I was just going to say, look, I know I'm very familiar with the stipulated agreement from 2002, which states in perpetuity. Obviously, at that time, there was really no understanding of of future improvements to lighting and to light pollution, considered at the time of that discussion and time in court. I'm just sort of wondering, I don't know if we know for sure, and if town legal's looked into, the likelihood that the court would be willing to consider reopening the agreement, and what the cost for legal for this might be, if we go or get through the town first.
Right now, because we're using town legal, there is no cost. And again, Rose has done a fantastic job for us. And so if we end up in court, will she be prepared at that point to actually represent us in court? We'll make that decision when we get closer to that time.
Okay, that's good to know. So that helps us with that coverage. Cody, did you have a question? Okay. And I know this isn't, I just want to put this out there. I know we're trying to not make as, push to make a lot of changes, but I do want to make sure that, if we do get going forward with this, that we really do, consider making sure that we add some sort of detail about lighting for the fields for evening practice, because as it gets darker earlier, I know a lot of our teams are out there practicing in the dusk and when it gets dark, and accidents happen. I know, as mine had a crushed finger from a dark practice. It happens, but if there's a possibility down the road that we can mention that as well, that would be fantastic. No, if we're able to even move forward with more games. Anyone else? So the question then becomes, since we made this as a motion, the question is it something that the board would like to take up tonight? I'm happy to call this into question. We obviously have longer times to discuss this, but this is just a motion for us to be able to move this discussion forward through the town's process. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. This is something that I've been hoping to see for a very long time. I'd love it to make it one of my last votes. Yep. Let's go forth.
I'm
Exactly.
happy to.
Item F.
I'd like to be able to, so I'm happy to put this motion on the table. So again, this is just our wanting to move this forward, and I will read each motion as it is, because I believe, right, Ben, you said I have to read it via those three recommended motions, as opposed to the one I read to open the discussion.
Yeah, I think just for clarity moving forward, those three as presented.
Okay, so I will make a motion to authorize the administration to submit wait, does that mean I need to withdraw my initial motion and make these three instead? So I'm going to authorize the administration to submit an application to the RTM for modification of the conditions for use of the Cardinal Stadium lights with respect to Municipal Improvement Plan 485, which was approved on December 11th, 2000, subject to the approval of the Superior Court related to the stipulation and order of judgment. Would somebody who wants to make this one of their last votes want to second this? All right, Cody is seconding that. So all in favor? Kathleen, do I see? Okay, so that is 6-0. Fantastic. So then I will move on to the second motion. If successful at the RTM, I'd like to make the motion to authorize the administration to submit an application to Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals to modify the conditions for the use of the Cardinal Stadium lights with respect to appeal number 8697 dated January 9th, 2002, subject to the approval of the Superior Court related to the stipulation and order of judgment. Somebody want to second? Kathleen is seconding it. Fantastic. All in favor? Another unanimous 6-0. Fantastic. That leads me to the last motion on this. So if successful at the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals, I'd like to make the motion to authorize the administration to submit an application to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a modification of the conditions for the use of the Cardinal Stadium lights with respect to final site plan number 2278 and related decision dated June 28th, 2002, subject to the approval of the Superior Court related to the stipulation and order of judgment. Do I have a second? Okay, Sophie? So all in favor? 6-0, another unanimous decision. Thank you to the members of the board. I think that this is going to be something people are going to be interested in going forward. Moving on to policy 9311. I know our policy chair is unable to be here tonight. I will make a motion to approve policies 2161, 3280, and 4121 as presented. Sophie will second, and I know that Sophie, you would like to present these? No, we have to make a note to change that.
Sure. The first one is the hiring of senior level administrators. And we spoke about the desire to have the board potentially play a role with these senior positions. So the new language allows for the board to be involved in the process in terms of being on the hiring committee. It's not a requirement, but it's an option. And for the superintendent to inform us about the selected candidate before the decision is announced publicly. And the superintendent may provide an opportunity for the board to meet with the new hire. So those are kind of the three conditions, or sort of three new additions that we're making to our existing policy.
Does anybody have any questions on that particular policy? Okay. Nope. Laura?
Was the vote in the policy committee to put this forward unanimous?
Yes, the vote was unanimous. So turning to gifts and grants, actually, I would need to make a motion for an amendment here because there's a typo. The desire was to change, when you go down to the fourth paragraph, it should be donations above $10,000 in value made by an individual or entity not considered a partner organization will be subject to board approval above 10,000. So it says right now 20 in this written document, but it should actually be 10. So if I could make that motion.
I'll motion because that was what we put forward as the policy committee, and somehow it ended up as 20. So I will make that motion to make that modification.
Can I ask why not 20?
Yeah, let's just keep it at 20. That's a good typo. Or add an extra 0 on it. I mean, if someone comes along and says, I want to give you 15 grand, do we really want to tie them up? Like that's
It's about preserving equity across the board.
is equity preserved at 10 and not at 11?
You have to put it at some number, and going from 0 to 20 is big. We had this discussion at the meeting in June, and it was noted that the board actually had the policy governance had put 10, not 20. So it was a typo then too.
If it's equity, then we're comfortable having no cap for Greenwich High School since everyone benefits from that.
There has never been on cap for Greenwich High School because it's the only high school in town.
So you can, really? Someone can go and just do 100 grand, million?
No, it's not.
$1 billion dollars?
No. So people can donate from $1 to $1 million, but up to a certain number, it comes after a certain number comes to the board for approval. So if somebody wants to donate $1 million to redo a cafeteria or a playground at one elementary school, it provides inequity to all the other schools that don't have $1 million whatever at the school. So that was why it always just came to the board to have that. So to provide that equity across the 11 elementary schools versus the 3 middle schools. The high school is the only high school. So any donation that went to the high school, for instance, we've had some incredible donations from educational partners throughout town. I know we had the Greenwich Sports, team, but Greenwich, I can't even speak, Athletic Association, speaking earlier about lights. They've made incredible donations at the high school that just needed to be approved by us because it was above the gift cap, but it wasn't questioned because it's the only high school in town. Does that make sense?
That does.
Okay.
I still don't know why 10 is the magic number instead of 20.
Well,
I would say 100.
But again, so would you, and again, this is just for, it's making sure that there's equity among, so you can't have one school that can provide $100,000 of gift to one school and the other schools don't have that option. So I think that was really what it came down to. It's not.
Yeah, which
it's
I
just
think
about
it's just
providing that.
horrible basis to make decisions because there's no limiting principle to it. And on top of that, it's extremely arbitrary. We allow PTA, some PTAs can rate, I think the PTA caps are also silly, but some PTAs raise more money, some parents offer more time. There's all kinds of other things that are inequitable in the eyes of that certain lens of looking at things. And we know that the way the budget works is if you have more money at one school, it probably ends up leading to more money being freed up for the rest. So it seems so silly to me. It's like only government would have trouble taking free money in. But it's
Well, I'll just say, while it's true that some schools have the ability to raise more funds than others, they're only allowed to use those funds for certain things, right? So it doesn't always help necessarily for us Board of Ed wise budgetarily, but this was also helping to remove the gift cap for the PTAs. So instead of having any gift cap, there's no gift cap, but if there's a donation above a certain, so we've removed that. So that should make you happy.
No, I mean,
Okay.
It only took 2 years of asking for this, but it's just sad to see the 20,000 and go, okay, that's something, and then have it cut in half for no reason.
It wasn't cut in half. It was put there. It was accidentally, it was a, Scribner's error.
The divine intervention to raise it for the benefit of students is being interrupted.
Are you going to be I'm happy to have a discussion if you're the first one to write the check after you're off the board.
If I give 20 grand to a school, I'll spin a wheel. Will you change it to 20?
I need to see a check first. I'm kidding. I'm not going to play that. But realistically for me, to be fair, I will say that when we had this as a vote in policy governance, it was not unanimous because I still do believe in providing equity amongst the schools. And so, yes, I was the person who did not support this because I do feel that there are opportunities, PTAC is still here, and being a member of PTAC, I can tell you that there are schools that have the ability to raise millions of dollars and some that have, every year fight to just raise the amount needed just to cover a few after school things. And we want to make sure that all the students in our 11 elementary schools have similar experiences by the time they get to middle school, and then similar experiences in the middle school when they get to high school.
Should we ban private schools?
Well, we don't have anything to do with private schools.
I'm just saying, like, there's no limit to it. It's so arbitrary. It's saying, oh, that somehow someone might end up with something more, and because of that, we should take that away from it. I find it, I would love to put it up for a vote for the 20,000 and see if it fails. And then if you want,
Well,
go to 10,000.
again, it was a Scribner's error, so you'd have to change it, but the policy committee put forward 10.
Okay, can I offer an amendment or whatever the policy is to let us vote on 20?
Well, I think we can put forward what's put forward, and then you can not vote, or you can offer.
But this is what's put forward. You guys had to make a motion to amend what was put forward.
Well, it was never, no.
I think we can vote on my motion to amend and see if it is successful or not. I mean, the motion on the floor is to change 20,000 to 10,000. Should we call the question?
You can do that. Mike supported 10, sorry. He can't jump in halfway through but.
Okay, well, I'm calling do you want me to call the question?
No,
Okay, I'll call the question.
This is to support the motion to amend.
This is to support the motion to amend for changing from $20,000 to $10,000.
I'm the only one? Okay, well, I'm supporting the motion. There's two of us. All those, so, yeah. Okay, so then we're not amending that. Do you want to go to the next one?
So now I'm going to make a motion to accept the policy on gifts and grants as.
Well, no,
as
we
written.
have to we didn't vote for the first one yet. So I thought you were going through all of the. No, we didn't. We didn't vote on it. It was a motion to vote on all three. She made the motion to revise the one. That's what we just voted on.
Okay, so now you make a motion to pass the first one, is that?
No, at the end, we have one more policy to present.
Oh, I get it. It's one, yes, got it.
Sorry, the last policy is on substitute teachers, and the pertinent change was about the changing it to 60 continuous days, which some of the teachers spoke to earlier. I believe that, and Dr. Jones can clarify this, but this is also is bringing our policy in line with what is required by the state.
Yeah, Section 8 of Public Act 2359 allows for local boards under circumstances to employ substitute teachers for up to 60 days without obtaining the State Department of Education issued substitute authorization. And so it was basically to keep us in line with that state regulation that we had to make it. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have up to 60 days. It's just that that is what the state has required the language to be. It says, you know, the teachers were now permitted to employ a person who lacks substitute teacher authorizations to a substitute in the same assignment for a period not to exceed 60 school days. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I know I made a motion to add all, you know, to approve all three. I'm not sure if you guys want to do them all together or separately.
I have one comment. We should justify the text in these documents when we format them, make them easier and more pleasant to read.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts on the motion? I mean, I will happily tell you in advance, I will not support the gifts and grants change. So I don't want to vote no on the other two, but I will not support the change to gifts and grants. So I'm happy to separate them. If that's the case, I'll withdraw my motion to approve policies 2161, 3280, and 4121 as presented. You want to make, you're welcome to make the motions if you'd like.
I'll make a motion to vote on the gifts and grants one.
No. What?
Look who just joined us.
Yeah, I have to double check Robert's rules, but I'm not sure you can join mid-meeting once we're mid-discussion and vote on something.
Ooh.
I'm not sure.
Now we're concerned with the proper way to do meetings. He's totally allowed to join and vote on something.
You don't, you don't have people that join and vote and then if they,
I have done that
double
before.
check.
You'll have to go back and invalidate my votes from the past.
I don't think you've joined to vote for one of
Literally
them.
have actually done exactly that.
I mean, I will double check, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, we just had the entire discussion. So, and I know he is our policy chair, so I'm happy to, if you have anything you want to weigh in while I do the little research here. Mike?
I didn't realize I did not mean to time my arrival dramatically. I know before us are the second
For
read
those
of
who are
three,
texting at the same time.
three policies. I guess we've been having a discussion on the policies. I know the two of the policies passed the policy committee 3-0. The gifts one passed 2-1, but was the gifts one, it was the one that was championed in June. That was the one where the champion was June, was championed by PTAC, and then was also in their annual report. I guess is there a concern about that one? Is that what I'm walking into?
Yes, there's just a discussion because it was the 20,000 is as it's written here. And then there was a question of reducing it to 10. And the discussion was that some of the members of the board are opposed to reducing it from 20 to 10. And so I made an amendment. I made a motion, sorry, to amend it. And that motion failed. So now we would be voting on the gifts and grants with the 20,000 in value, not 10. So
that's nuts. Oh, that's too bad, because that was actually that's a confusion. That's totally my fault. Because we did mean to, that was a clerical error. It did meant to come out. It did mean to come out at 10,000 net cap from the policy committee.
But Mike, you missed a lively discussion around that, and there was not support to decrease it. I think the support is to keep it at 20,000. So it might be a lucky error.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
And I will say I did take a quick look under Robert rules, and yes, it does note that even though I had been erroneously told earlier, but not earlier today, but earlier in life, but a board member can join after it has started to participate and can participate in voting. So I did want to note that I was incorrect in stating that.
My apologies. for that,
Historical
Karen.
votes are
I-
safe.
Jen?
Just a question on this number. So to be clear, the correct number, the number that should have been written in the document was 10,000 or 20,000?
So in our discussion, when this was at a first read last June, we talked at the board table of reducing it to 10 grand, and that was kind of the sense of the meeting. Then between June and now, that number did not get reduced, which was more of a clerical error. Should I have been here in full disclosure, and I did have this conversation with Karen earlier, I would have, and to be able to introduce it, I would have amended it. I failed to prep Sophie, and I apologize for not. This is totally because this confusion is all because I couldn't be there earlier, and I apologize for that.
To be fair, it came out of policy governance at $10,000, and the notes that I have from our board meeting in June when we talked about it, because I'd asked then in the meeting and you said that it was a typo. It was supposed to be 10,000, not 20,000, even when it was presented in June for our first read.
That is what I meant to convey. I do not dispute that.
Seems okay now. I promise I won't amend it, offer an amendment to raise it to 50,000 if we can just move on to vote on it.
Yes, Jen? Laura, then Jen?
Well, I guess my question is there a reason, Mike, you feel strongly about the 10,000 versus 20? Do we need to amend it to 15? Like, what do we got to do? Split it down the middle?
Personally, no. The 10,000 was what we had discussed last June. Personally, I think the more important aspect of this policy is the waiver of the gift cap than anything.
And this is just a threshold number for board approval.
That's right.
That's really all this is a threshold number. So whether
Yeah,
it's
that's why I said it
10
could-
or
you can donate
20, they can.
$1 million. It just comes
Correct.
to us.
It would come
at
to the board
$10,000
first,
or
so
$20,000.
at a lower point.
It's just adding friction when someone wants to give us free money, which is, I don't know.
Well, I guess one could argue at, $100,000, you could be like really moving something. I think between 10 and 20, it's sadly the way costs are right now, it's not going to be a meaningful change. So I think I'm comfortable with where it is at 20.
Should we go back to the first policy that we were going to vote on?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Mike, basically we decided to vote for them separately.
Okay.
About
The
right
three-
as you logged on.
Yes, sorry. So that we were just I was making a motion to vote on the hiring of senior level administrators, that policy as amended. I'm not going to read the whole thing, right? Can I have a second?
I'll second that one.
Okay. Karen? Everyone in favor?
All those in favor of approving
Of the
policy
hiring of senior-
2161?
Yeah, 2161.
Hmm.
Okay. That's
Wait, I just didn't see. Wait,
a 7.
I just have to pull up Mike. Did you have your hand up, Mike?
I did.
Okay.
Aye.
I think we have to get you verbally, but so yes, you're in support. So it's 7-0.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the gifts and grants policy 3280 as amended. Do I have
As it is.
as it is, as presented? Do I have a second? And Cody? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so all those opposed? Karen and Jen, okay. The motion passes. And lastly, I would like to make a motion to adopt the policy 4121 on substitute teachers as presented. Can I have a second? Cody? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's a 7-0.
I want to get all the seconds in for our last meeting.
And just a reminder for, I know the staff who spoke, it's important to note that just because we can go to 60 days doesn't mean we necessarily will. We've never done that. It's just to be in line with state language. So the next item up for action is a motion, and I will make the motion, is as discussed at the Board of Ed Student Achievement Retreat, the Board of Education moves to adjust freshman English from 112, 113, and 113 Advanced to a freshman English model of 113 and 113 Advanced. Both courses to remain unweighted. I will note it isn't just English, it is social studies as well. Is there a second? Okay, Kathleen. I believe that's up for discussion now. Anyone? Comments? Laura?
I am opposed to this motion because I think I value all three levels, and I don't think we should consolidate or eliminate any of them. I think we provide an opportunity for everybody to learn at a pace and rigor that is comfortable. It's a system that it's working, and I don't see any reason to break it.
Jen?
And Dr. Jones, can you just remind me what happens at the sophomore level with these courses? Is it the same three?
Somebody in the audience could answer that better than me. I think I've been looking at their schedule, but because you also had, does an AP count also for some of those students? So I think it's 211, 212.
211, 212, 213, and then AP.
Yeah.
Is Lucy's on?
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe we have some of our.
Can I ask a question? Okay.
Well, I'm going to let Ms. Barry speak first because I think she's going to be answering that question. I see Mike's hand up, then Kathleen's, and then I have a question too.
Yes, I just want to make sure you're clear on the levels in 10th grade.
And those are?
We have a 211, which is very supportive for kids who are maybe a little bit low on the proficiencies. 212, which is the on-level college prep. The 213, which is an honors. And then there is also an AP level in 10th grade.
Thank you, Ms. Barry. Mike, you had your hand up, and then I know Kathleen.
So actually, now I have a question. So Ms. Barry, so that means we'd be going, if adopted, we'd be going from 2 levels to 4 in 9th grade, 2 levels, 10th grade, 4.
That's right.
And then how do you see that? How do you see that playing out? How do you see that students adopting that way?
I think I'm speaking for most of us when I say that I think in the 9th grade, we do believe it, whether it's 2 or 3 levels, we could adjust to either. We could work with 2 levels with lots of differentiation. We really strongly feel that it shouldn't be weighted because it's a foundational year, it's a transition year. We think students need to really grow in their skills. It's skills heavy, and we love to build students, and we don't want to get them into a groove where once they're in it, they'll never be able to go up to other levels. So students make growth, tremendous growth in that year. And the next year, they can sort out into a variety of levels. It seems to work well. Students do go to a variety of levels. And we have kids who were in the on level that go to the honors. We have students that were in the accelerated that go to the on level. That seems to happen naturally, and 2 students benefit.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I was kind of hoping you would say. For the record, I support this measure based on what I've heard in conversation I'm hearing. I always appreciate it when I can take a more progressive position than Ms. Costin. I think the elimination of levels here is really kind of eliminating some tracking and instead supporting students to higher expectations. And 9 times out of 10, when you set those expectations, students rise to the occasion. It sounds like, based on what Ms. Barry was just saying, we have supports in 10th grade for those few students that might not rise to the occasion. But it sounds like also this might give more students the opportunity to end up rising and moving into the accelerated levels. So I think it makes a lot of sense.
I know I said Kathleen had a question next, but I see that Ms. Areco has her hand up, and I assume it's in response to a specific question.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that my hope is that we could change the names of the 9th grade courses, because I do think if they remain 113 and 113A, that would cause some confusion when students are moving on to 10th grade. I don't know if we have to decide that tonight, but Bridget and I had been discussing calling them English 9 and Global Studies 9 and English 9 Accelerated and Global Studies 9 Accelerated.
Okay. Kathleen?
Yeah, no, I actually completely agree. It's funny. I was talking to a bunch of people about this at other schools, and they're like, why wouldn't you just call it, what's with the number system, right? Why? I mean, we have bio, we have honors bio, right? I mean, you look around, this kind of came out of, again, I think this was this 10 year ago where this 113A was a pilot, and we need to now sort of look at how we've adjusted other things. I at one point had been an advocate for weighting it, but I actually understand what you're now saying, Ms. Areco, Ms. Barry. I appreciate your perspective on this. At the retreat, for those that stayed up late, I also think that Ralph was supportive of this change. And so I'm kind of happy to listen to the principal and sort of the heads of the departments on this one.
Was that your comment, or did you also have a question?
Nope, that's all.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, yeah, I know. So I was just going to say, I know at the last meeting that I wasn't at the retreat. Unfortunately, I was lying in a hospital bed. It was real fun. But the meeting prior to that, when we started talking a little bit about weighting, it was the weighting at least for 113 versus 113. I know we talked about it. I noted it was going to be discussed in a policy meeting. Policy committee hasn't met yet, so I just was hoping that we would still have an opportunity just to discuss in general, and wondering why we would sort of revise it to be 113 and 113A as opposed to 112 and 113, only in the fact that, I know it's really the transition to come from middle school to high school, the rigor, the speed, the lack of parental involvement and oversight for some students is really difficult and a really big challenge. And it's not just one course. This isn't just English. It's also social studies. So it's really two courses, and they're not just learning English and social studies in these courses. They're learning how to be high schoolers. They're learning how to study and turn in homework as a high schooler. They're learning the rigor and what is expected of them as high schoolers in taking exams and weekly tests. And they're learning how to prepare work and cite external documents. And it's so much more. And I think it was partially discussed earlier, mentioned regarding STEM skills, but there's so much that's learned in these courses. And I understand that we offer students a lot of opportunities to move sideways, upwards, downwards during the school year and from year to year. But that transition year from 8th to 9th grade is huge for most students. And to me, I mean, I missed the opportunity to have this discussion at our retreat, and I'd love to have the opportunity just to have a little bit more discussion. I didn't know it was going to be on tonight's agenda, to be able to reach out to some of our, educational community, just because I know we have a lot of students where special needs come into play, especially from high school, middle school to high school. It's the rigor you see in 8th grade, especially when they come into 9th grade, and that hits is when you start to see a lot of students where we discover a lot of learning differences in them. And I don't want to take away the opportunity for students to move at a pace if they're not really ready to move at the high school pace for 2 courses, not just one. So I'd really love the opportunity to just take a little bit deeper of a dive, if that's just my opinion. So I'm just putting that out there. I know Jen had I don't know if any,
To your point about some of the challenges when you're going from the 8th grade into the 9th grade, if 112 is removed and those students are placed, I guess, in 113 and then 113A or whatever we're going to call it, can you talk to us anybody actually who wants to field the question, a little bit more about the supports that are in place. I know we've heard about STEM skills, as far as the counseling, extra help. Could you help us know, what's available for those students should they go into that course? What other supports are available for them if 112, if it's decided that, it's no longer,
I don't know if Bridget wants to speak to that since we're talking about English, but Ralph did share at the retreat one of the challenges with 112 from his perspective, and he may still be on. I know he wasn't feeling well today. But part of it was that the parents are not choosing 112 because they don't see it as college prep. And so when we went and we looked at the numbers, we have about 80 students, and you're talking class sizes of 600 and 700 students. So that was part of what he shared at the retreat. That was very helpful, I thought. If you had 112 and 113, he's afraid. Oh, there he is. He's with us. Take it away, Ralph.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dr. Jones, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone on the Board of Education. Yeah, my point being that once we added 113A, students started looking at 112 as a non-college prep class. It is a college prep class, but that's not how it's perceived. And that's one of the things that one of the downsides of 113A was. We have a lot of support to answer that other question. In the 112 classes right now, we would not take that support away. A number of those classes are co-taught by an English and or social studies teacher and a special ed teacher. So that wouldn't go away. But just to allay anybody's fears about it, these are survey courses. They're talking about different genres in English, and they're talking about different aspects of history in global studies. So I think that having 2 levels is much more appropriate for our students than 3. And then I think that when they go into 10th grade, that's when we should be talking about, and we are, honors, AP, whatever, or at regular level or 212 level, which is what I taught when I was at Greenwich High School, when I was teaching at Greenwich High School. So I really believe that this is a great move, and I thank the superintendent for moving this forward.
I know, I'm sorry. I thought, Ms. Barry, did you have your hand up? It's your
Sure.
hand- your hand.
I quite agree with Ralph, and I do think that the calling the courses, but the numbers are an oddity. That's been an oddity for as long as I've been at the school, as far as I know, but it doesn't mean that much. And I think that when you call a course English 9 and the other one is English 9 Accelerated or Global Studies 9, it's much clearer. And we will support students at whichever level. We always want kids where they will be appropriately challenged and supported such that whatever level they're on, they could have more choice of level the following year.
Cody?
Do we want to amend the motion to change the name as well? Is that a necessary thing to do, or?
I mean, I think if you want to make a motion to amend it to going from 3 levels to 2 levels and allow the high school to fiddle with the naming of how they want to do that, I think that would be appropriate if that's the case. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not necessarily for or against. I just wasn't at the retreat in order to have a deep dive. I listened to the discussion. That's why I said I feel like we didn't have it. I didn't know this was coming tonight, so I didn't really feel like we had an opportunity to gain input from our teachers. And I was going to say, I agree that levels 112, 113, 113A makes it confusing for a lot of parents who are new to the, education world in Greenwich. And so Of course, they want something with an A on the end, or what 112 doesn't seem as exciting as 113. So changing the names makes perfect sense with whatever it is that the high school then decides, if that's what they would want to do. For me, it was just about having the opportunity to get a little bit more input and ensuring that the students that are coming in, like I said, I feel like, because it isn't just one course, it's two that we're talking about. It's English and social studies, but that's just, again, that was why I was hoping to just see where people were sitting.
What speed do you listen to the meetings at? Just 1x or do you do 2x?
I listened at 1x. I have ADHD. If you go at 2x, sometimes I miss a statement or something. So I listen at general speed.
Just to make a comment about this, I was skeptical of this because the idea of reducing the, my impulse is always anti-progressive. So I was questioning this one. But upon further digging into it, I think it's quite compelling, especially the idea of, it's one thing if you're taking out the top class and pulling people lower, but if you're taking out the bottom and pushing people up and having higher standards, especially when you think about the smaller numbers involved here, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I changed my mind on this from our last meeting. And I think we should name them by colors like they do in karate. It should be like orange class and blue class, but I'll let you guys decide that.
So are there any other comments or questions? Because I'm happy to.
No, but do you mind withdrawing it so we can try to do that new motion that you had suggested?
Yeah. I'm happy to withdraw my initial motion. Do you want to make the motion or amend it, or I'm happy to make it if you'd like? I'm happy to make it if you want.
Yeah, it sounds like you have it, Karen.
I do, but I will. So I will withdraw my initial motion and say, as discussed at the Board of Ed, I'd like to make a motion that as discussed at the Board of Ed Student Achievement Retreat, the Board of Education moves to adjust freshman English from 112, 113, and 113 advanced, moves to adjust the 3 sections of freshman English from 112, 113, and 113 advanced to a freshman English and Social Studies model of 2 sections renamed at the high school's discretion, both courses to remain unweighted.
So I think you did such a good job on the fly.
As discussed at the I'd like to make a motion as discussed at the Board of Education Student Achievement Retreat that the Board of Education moves to adjust the 3 freshman English and Social Studies courses 112, 113, and 113 advanced to a 2-section freshman English and Social Studies model of courses to be renamed at the high school's discretion. Both courses to remain unweighted.
Happy to second that.
All right. On the fly. So I will, all in favor? Okay, 4. All oh, sorry, I can't see Mike. Mike, is your
Aye.
hand up?
Aye.
That's why we do, okay. So, 5, all opposed? 1, and all who abstain. Here's me. So it's 5-1-1. Motion passes. Okie dokie. Well, that is our last action item. And now we get to move on to discussion items. The first discussion item tonight is the monthly financial report. Ben, Mr. Lai, you guys there to take it away?
Yeah, this is the first report of this fiscal year. The last month you had the fiscal year end. From a financial report standpoint, relatively straightforward and pretty early in the year to have any concerns right now, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Anyone? Bueller? No one? Mike? No? Okay. So thank you guys for presenting that. Documents online. I guess we can move to budget transfers. You guys are still up.
I'll just say as presented, relatively benign transfers.
Any questions, comments? In the peanut gallery now? No one? Mike? No? Okay. Okay, perfect. So then I guess we can move on to the October 1st official enrollment update. Dr. Jones?
So this is a very thick, big document, so we won't talk about every page. It is online. It is a hot item always, every year. Everybody waits for it. Just, a few of the highlights where enrollment is as of, 2025 versus 2024, pre-K through 12 plus at our 17 schools and programs. And again, we have 15 schools, then we have Windrose and Community Connections, and we're down by about 120 students. And while some people think that's a big number, again, when you spread that across all the mini grades that we have and all of our buildings, it really is not super impactful. When you look at some of our profile on page 2, people are always interested what's happening with our outplacements. Again, looking at the district enrollment, what's happening with our settlements. And again, as you know, last year, at the very end of the year, we were able to recapture some of that outplacement funding. So it's nice to not see this going up year after year. So on page 3, again, you can kind of see where we are on just our enrollment by grade for those of you who are interested in that. You'll notice that we still have some larger classes at GHS that are 676, 674, smaller than they were, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, but still larger in comparison to the district. So what's going to happen in the high school is over the next couple of years, their enrollment's going to continue to go down. Next year, it's down, I think, another 80 odd, and we can look at that in a minute. But because you're going to have, when you look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, pretty small class sizes that are going to come through. Our 6th grade class is only 563 students. We're used to, again, seeing 6s and 700s. And if you look at the 7th grade, they're 611, and 8th grade, 596. So again, we're gonna see enrollment continue to go down at the high school, and then when the younger grades that are now 2nd grade, 3rd grade, it'll start going back up. But it's going to take a little while, and you'll see that in the enrollment report. Just to point out, the high need students, that's on, again, page 5, right at the top. And you can see where we're sitting for special education. And we've had a change where it's about 16 student change. Our EL students are down this year by about 58. But that's kind of something they're seeing in the region. It's not just us. Let me see what else would be. High needs by school. If you look on page 9, you could kind of get an idea of what it looks like across like our Title I schools versus, for instance, Riverside. Again, just the number of high needs students. And, a lot of people do not realize in Greenwich that we're right around that 30% mark of high needs students. And it is pretty high. So, if you look at, there is information on racial balance, which is on page 11. And again, it doesn't look radically different than it has on all of the other years. But this year, we had 2 years where it was kind of on pause. This year it's back, but there is discussion about having legislation that will go in and study this. And what I am really asking for from our state representatives is that if the will is not there to pause it or to eliminate it altogether, because it really impacts West Hartford, Fairfield, and us, that they need to come up with a better formula, because it really is, it's disappointing to be saying that Greenwich is out of balance when we actually have a very diverse community and a very diverse school district. And you look at the high school where they all converge, it's pretty amazing compared to some of the other communities around us that are completely homogeneous. So I'm hoping that they'll look at that for a new formula. On page 12, you're seeing the magnet students, the tuition students, out of attendance exceptions. Remember, out of attendance exceptions could be for a number of reasons. It could be a student who needs to be in our co-taught classes at Cos Cobb, the unique program at North Street. You also have situations where it's wonderful at elementary if they're having like an issue where like children are not getting along or a child is just feeling bullied, and we're trying to help come up with a really good plan. We work with the parents sometimes to move the student, and it kind of gives them a whole fresh start. So that's what that category is. On page 13, you're looking at some of the kindergarten data. And again, with the change in legislation, it kind of gives you an idea what we're seeing, and you might want to go in and read that text. What's getting ready to happen is we've had waivers where children, if they were not 5, but they used to be up into December. Now it is September 1st. We are moving to September 30th. With a hard cutoff this year. And again, that's not, we're not going to be dealing in waivers. And the state is saying that's where they're going. They're giving us 1 more year. So we're going to implement that this year so that we're on top of that. The other thing to look at is on page 14, people always want to know how good are our projections. And, projecting school enrollment is very challenging to do. And when you look at our projections to be 98.3% of the projection, that's very, very strong. That's good. I mean, we, for the most part, are on top of our cohorts, on top of our enrollment and incoming enrollment. The pre-K to kindergarten has been challenging the last 2 years, and we saw that again this year. Again, you can look at the GPS 10-year enrollment projections on page 16. I know some of you kind of enjoy just watching that, and it depends on the building. I was in a meeting today with middle school. Central is actually going to go down over the next couple of years just by the feeder pattern that's going to Central, but then it does go back up. So when you get to Central, you're going to see where Western and Eastern are pretty flat. And again, it has to do with their feeder schools. On page 17, you're looking at the children who are born in Greenwich, that actually the number of Greenwich births, and you can see that the birth rate went back up again. And so that's why you're seeing that influx in kindergarten. On page 18, what you're looking at with that orange line is the in-migration of the families that have moved into Greenwich. Their children weren't born here. So the blue line are the children that we know from birth rate data. The orange line is what we know for the students who were not on that birth rate data, but they've moved into Greenwich. And I think if you watch the real estate market, the houses go fast, and they're not sitting very long, and many of them have children in them. So we'll skip over. Again, you can look at the residents attending private school. That's on page 20. Some people just find that interesting, and it's a question that I get asked around town. And what you'll see is Greenwich Country Day, because they've added classes, they've expanded their offerings. They've been going up, but most of the private schools are either flat or in decline. Enrollment in their, private schools look similar to enrollment across the country. So again, if you look at like Whitby was at 263, now they're 194. If you look at the King School, they were 156, now they're 101. So again, that's just informational. I'm going to skip over the district enrollment page.
Can I just have one question on the private school thing?
Sure.
I'd sent you this in an email, but is it, do we track when someone leaves one of our, and this is a little different than this broader report, but I know some of the principals keep track of reasons why a student will leave to go to a private school. Do we have any like aggregated data for that across all the schools?
If we know where they're going, then like we're transferring records and stuff like that, but we don't always know. And we do have the Q&A that you sent. We're working and finishing that today. So we'll answer some of those questions that you had, and I'll send those to the full board.
Yeah, I know, just to tag on to that, I know I've asked a couple years in the past also about if we ever do exit, give them exit surveys when we know somebody's leaving the district. Because I think that would be very important data to know if they're leaving to go from public to private locally, or if they're just moving out of state, I think it's helpful to know.
I just realized too, this is just the Greenwich residents, because some of these I was looking at going, wow, these look small, but then it's got it. It's not all their student body.
Right. So on page 23 and 24, you can see our current enrollment. You can see again where we anticipate to be next year at all the different levels. Again, pre-K remains one of our fastest growing areas. So we're working on staying on top of that. So I'm just going to, what might be relevant. So when you start on around page, it's a second section, and you'll see there's a brand new section, and it starts with page 1 again. Once you see that's where you start looking school by school. So it's giving you K-12, you can look at the middle school, but you start going school by school and what's actually happening. On page 7, like if you look at—
Hey, Tony, I'm
Yep.
so sorry to interrupt you again, but this just really stood out to me, and I just wanted to know if you had a read on it. It's like, if you said to me that even with Country Day opening a high school in this period, I think it was in this period, like the 16-17 versus 24-25, there's 300 fewer students from Greenwich in private school. It's in a period where the student age population, I would guess, post-COVID has gone up quite a bit here. I'm just guessing on that part, but that seems very surprising to me. Do you have any just thoughts or observations on that?
I'm not surprised because our education is outstanding. We're getting great results and we're free.
Oh, that's a sweet mic drop moment.
Well, I was also going to say, I think it's in line. I think a lot of it is also just looks in line. If you look at if you compare this to our numbers, right? So our numbers are going down. We talk about national enrollment, like birth rate data are going down nationally at this stage and age. It tracks at the private schools will also see a slight decline in that regards too, just because there's less, tushes to put in seats, private or public, so to speak. So I think that also is part of it. If I'm not so.
I guess I don't know this, but it seems like maybe the private schools are also just enrolling more people from New York and elsewhere, right? I mean, because they've definitely grown their overall enrollment during this period, but the number of students coming from Greenwich hasn't grown.
Because Greenwich public schools are awesome, which Dr. Jones just said, and I want to highlight that she said it because it's true.
So then you go school by school, and if you look on like page 7 where you have Cos Cob, sitting at around 400, they will be back up. They'll start kind of getting back up there again. You look at Glenville. Glenville is an area of town where there has been increased number of sections, just the number of children that live in that area. If you look a couple years ago where they were 380, 385, now you're talking 460, 470, 480. So, they're out of space for the most part. They're full. Hem Ave, again, very stable. We expect it to stay pretty much where it is right now. ISD is relatively stable as well. They may be down 10 students or so, but ISD, as a reminder, is a magnet school. So it's a little unique because we do control somewhat the number of students that can, be in kindergarten or first grade, the different grades. Julian Curtis, again, relatively going forward about where they are now. They'll grow a little bit, but nothing radical. New Lebanon is, sitting at that 370. Again, when you look at 2035, they're still the same number. So I'll let you just you can look through those and just see where we are. And if you look at Parkway, which is one that is interesting because we know that during COVID, a lot of houses sold in back country and the numbers have been going up there. And so when we look at that by 2035, they're going to be up 100 students in that building. And again, this is taking the birth rate data, everything we know, and I'm on page 16, where right now they're at 233. The other thing to note, if you go back a few years ago and you're looking in the budget, it's been about 4 years ago, they did have pre-K there that used to get added into their number. This is just K-5. So they are growing in the backcountry area as well. Riverside, again, going all the way out. We're not going to get much relief there. So I think it's wonderful that we have this construction project. It needs to get done because again, they're going to start hitting 500, towards the end of the projection and start to go back up. Middle school starts on page 18. Again, if you look at Central, they are going to go down. It's going to continue for about 3. Again, it just has to do with their feeder schools. But then if you look out, they start to get back up to those 500 numbers again. So it's a very small kind of blip where, again, smaller classes are coming in there. Eastern is stable. Western is relatively stable. And when you look at the high school enrollment, they're going to have a continual, which we just talked about, little continual decline. They'll be all the way down to 2,400, which is really small for us when you think about over the years. And I might just leave it at that and see if you have questions, because I don't think I need to go through every one of these projections.
Anybody have?
Wait,
Cody, you have a question?
Sorry, I had one
Yep. No, it's fine.
I just lost the table I was looking at. The Parkway projection, that was off by 26? I'm just looking.
What page are you on?
Sorry, page 23.
First section or second? Okay.
First section, I think. Right, hold on. No, then a different, not that page. I'm just using the PDF from it's called Appendix A, October 2025 enrollment. It's like that chart we always for class size stuff. This one. Oh, yeah.
Okay, and you're talking about 25, 26 this current year?
Yeah, I was just looking at the actual versus projected, the minus 26.
Yes. Yep. And most of those, again, on the elementary, when you've got 10 to 20 students, most of it is attributed to kindergarten. They call it red shirting, but now that the age has changed, we are seeing they're coming in older. There are parents still they're not starting them early. They want them to be fully 5 and not be the youngest in the class.
And so do you think you get an offset next year where you get a bunch of a surge of kids next year?
We think so. But again, it's, we're going to be tighter on enrollment and who actually can be retained. And because for a long time, we had a policy, you couldn't retain students. Coming out of COVID, because the early childhood had masks on and just some of them didn't cope with that as well, we were a little more open. And then when the state changed the age for that legislation, that impacted us as well. And so next year we're ready now. We'll be back to normal, and they need to be 5 on or before September 30th, which matches most school districts in the country. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. No,
okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about the kindergarten thing. And masks, we'll throw back.
Does anybody else have any questions? Mike.
Thanks. Yeah, let me just point out 2 things, because everybody likes to use their enrollment report to make their own points and whatnot. So you're looking apples to apples, right? Let's be clear here. It is a slow enrollment drop, not a major enrollment drop. I went back and looked based on we compare everything from pre-COVID, right? So there was 9,057 students all in back in 2019 when you count out of district placement and everybody else. So that's an 8% difference from 2019 to now, which is significant, but it's also not taking the whole the whole center out of the system. And so I think that's a fair perspective to put it in. So it's a slow shrinkage over the last 5 years. The other point, which I know is less popular, but I do think it's worth us as a board continuing to monitor it and look at it, because there is a large disparity here in enrollment across our 3 middle schools. We're not going to make any decisions this evening, but as the construction projects finish, and if these numbers continue, at some point, I think we have to look very closely at considering the catchment areas and the very large number of students at Eastern compared to the much smaller, in the hundreds of students, numbers of students going to Central Middle School. That's not something we can spring on the community, and I think we probably need to wait for the construction to be finished completely. But that's a size disparity that over the next 2-3 years, I think we need to be mindful of and consider changing.
Yeah, and I might just add to the same conversation was happening in 2018, 2019 when New Lebanon was built. And
Right.
everybody said, you build it, they will come. And if you go and you look at their projections, 2017, 2018, they were 280, 250. And now, I mean, they're, 370. And we tend to have people that still want to apply a magnet in there. So I think in Central, as a matter of fact, one of the PTA members made a comment the other day. So it's, it's a comment. I don't have the quantifiable data, but that she knew probably 20 families herself that chose not to go to Central because of the emergency solution, or they were nervous about construction. And again, when you look at some of those students out of district, some of those families that I worked with to move to another middle school if I had space because the parents were nervous. So some of those siblings being in brand new middle school may want to come back to their home school.
I was going to.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. That's why I don't think we need to rush into any decision. But over the next 2-3 years, it's something we definitely have to monitor.
I was just going to make the comment that I think it's really important that we look not from year to year or even, 2 or 3 years. We really do need to look at these, enrollment projections at 5 to 10-year trends, especially when we're looking at facilities. We're not looking to change things this year for next year for 5 students or 6 students, because we all know it's, 5 or 6 students across, an elementary school across 6 grades is really not significant. When you're looking at larger numbers at the high school, you're looking at things, over a 5 or 10 year thing. We're building things for the future, not for a 2 or 3 year dip. And we've seen those numbers dip and then come right back, and then dip and then come right back. It's a wave that happens. It's a, whatever is it? I think it's a 10-year phase. I think that we consistently see, not just here. It's nationwide, and not. I know that Mike's statement in regards to we have to keep an eye on Central and their numbers versus Eastern. I know that was one of the discussions I was saying when we were looking at the size of Central. I said, I think we should build it bigger because we know we have a overcrowding at Eastern, and some of the students might want some relief. And I know we're not even close enough to have that discussion. I would caution against changing a catchment area again, because we see we typically have these 10-year waves. I would say, though, if we are overcrowded in one area and have the opportunity for moving students, to a different school, like we've done it before where we offer it as a magnet program, or we offer a short term for the next year or two, you can have the option to opt into a program. If that might help, I think that we have the time now to start looking into if those options could be possible if there's space down the road.
Yeah, and I might, because you mentioned Eastern, people tend to think of Eastern as bursting and that it's like really overcrowded. The reality is the enrollment's been going down in that school for Eastern, which has given them some relief, actually. And if you go back, like the first year that I started, we were at 862. We were just shy of, 900 students. That's when we put in that assistant dean to help out instead of adding an additional principal to get through the growth. But when that started falling down, we took out that assistant dean a year or so ago. And again, they're sitting at 773 right now. And so they're not, and from a mentality standpoint, a lot of people think they're bursting, but they're actually much better because we're down. And it's kind of like the high school. A lot of people still think of the high school as 29, or they'll say we're 3,000 students. But we dropped just below like 2 kids of 2,600 this year.
Any other questions, comments? I know that we'll be taking a lot of time going through this at some point. Cody?
Do you have the chart on page 20, the Greenwich residents attending private school? You have it broken out by elementary, middle, high school. Do you have another layer of detail to see what it is by specific school?
I'm sorry, say that again.
There's,
yeah.
sorry, I know there's like, on page 20, the private school share in Greenwich. Do you have, we have it, we know the number of residents attending private school by just the category of school, like elementary, middle, high school. Do we have that down to the school level?
That's a Jen Lau question, so I'll check with her on that.
Okay, cool. The reason I'm interested in it is I feel like it's always a good measurement of like how, to your point that it costs money. It's interesting to see how people vote with their feet and what, what insights, if any, you can get by looking at that. The other thing that I wanted to flag is on the previous page, and it's one thing that might be an issue in our forecasts, but the 10-year survival ratios, what we're using versus, the one that stood out to me was the 8-12 survival ratio has not been at 105 since 2021. And that trend has stepped down, or it's sustainably been, 97, 98, and we're using 105 on the forecast. And I wonder if that change is a more structural change that isn't reverting, or if we have any reason why we think it's going to revert. Because I think historical averages are good to use if you have volatility around some average, but if it's just a step change down that hasn't moved, we'll probably end up with the wrong forecast. I don't know, just an observation.
Anyone else? On enrollment? No? Okay, thank you for going over those numbers with us. I know it's a big document, and I'm sure that there will be questions asked going forward at some point as well. So I think we can move on to the tech program executive summary. Mike Ting, come on forward. Thank you for sitting through this whole meeting in person, waiting to present. What?
Always feel bad for the random civilians who have to wait behind all the annoying things we do to then present something.
He's not a random civilian.
No, I know, but like some of these we can just bang out right at the beginning.
I will note that the next two, one by Mr. Singh and Dr. Budd is following me. They're not random civilians. They're incredibly honored and valued staff members.
No, I meant that in a nice way. Like
I was just
as opposed to
checking.
all the silly stuff that we do.
I was just appreciating that he's here physically. So take it away.
This last year or the year before, but happy Cybersecurity Awareness Month. That's right. Every October for the past 20 years, the Department of Homeland Security has recognized this month as Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So this year's theme, Stay Safe Online, focuses on simple ways to protect yourself from online threats. According to their website, small actions can make a big difference. That's why the focus is on the core four easy steps anyone can take to boost their online safety. So, step 1, use strong passwords and a password manager. Step 2, turn on multi-factor authentication. Board members who don't have this turned on, please take note. Number 3, recognize and report scams. And number 4, install software updates regularly. Now, with that, hello, my name is Michael Ting, and I work in the Board of Education IT department. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Jones for the opportunity to speak tonight. I know it's late, and we still have more items on the agenda, so I'll simply highlight a few key points from this year's Technology Executive Summary Report. So from an IT perspective, our school district is a large and complex environment. We manage technology across 17 locations throughout the town of Greenwich, including over 3,000 computers, more than 600 classroom display systems, over 1,100 wireless access points, and on any given school day, up to 15,000 devices could be connected to our Wi-Fi. So with all that equipment, our help desk stays busy. Last year, we received more than 14,000 documented IT support tickets, right in line with our averages from previous years. Now, the key question, how satisfied are our users? We track that through voluntary surveys sent after each ticket is closed. Last year, we received 454 voluntary survey responses, and 434 of them were positive, giving us a 95.6% satisfaction rating for the department. So, speaking of great support, I want to give a special shout out to Anthony Stempian, who works countless hours and is actually still here helping to make sure this meeting runs smoothly. Fun fact, 17 of those positive surveys came from teachers who mentioned Anthony by name. So thank you, Anthony. Keep up the great work. You're welcome.
Always good to thank the man behind the camera who makes us look good.
This year, our most important IT project is the Greenwich High School Cellular Improvement Project. This is a long-awaited upgrade, and I want to thank the board for approving it. This project will bring reliable mobile service to every corner of Greenwich High School, including those tricky basement classrooms. As an IT guy, I'll admit, I'm so excited and I can't wait until this project is up and running. So speaking of projects, I want to take a moment to thank the board for your ongoing support and thoughtful investments in technology over the years. Your smart budgeting decisions ensure that our students and staff have access to fast, reliable, and modern technology year after year. So on behalf of my department, thank you. So I'm almost done. Before I close, I want to recognize one of our longtime team members, Karen Martin. Karen has been part of the Greenwich Public Schools family for more than 30 years, but her support for our schools goes back even further. All of Karen's children are proud graduates of Greenwich High School. Over the years, Karen has worn many hats. She has been the president of the PTA, a GMEA union officer, and most recently, Karen was named a difference maker for the month of October. Karen began her career as a media technical assistant at Julian Curtis Elementary School. From there, through hard work and her natural ability, she rose to become a Tier 2 network specialist at the central office, where, quite honestly, she's considered the IT department all on her own. So Karen, if you're listening, you are truly amazing. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for our schools. And please, while I know that Danny is retired and he's waiting for you, don't retire just yet. We're not ready to lose you. So to wrap up, I just want to say how proud I am of our IT team and the work they do to empower education year after year. I hope you found something in here useful. Thank you for listening.
I'm sure there may be some questions or comments, but I will say that I'm constantly amazed and incredibly impressed by the work that you and your entire team do, that every student in our schools has at least one, if not more devices. Every staff member has multiple devices. And typically when there's issues, you guys are on top of it and they're back up and running almost instantly. The fact that our students have to use all of these devices to access their learning, and we ensure that our students don't lose that access regularly is an incredible feat. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all of our staff and students to making sure that access is available to them, to their families, to our staff, to provide, access to education no matter where they are. And it's just, and ensuring that it's a consistent access. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Chairman Hirsch.
I see Cody's hand up.
I had two questions. One was, why does it take 2 years to do the cellular thing?
I think we got this question last year as well. It doesn't take 2 years, but when we put forth the funding request, we were requested if we could break it up into 2 years so that it could be paid over 2 years.
Oh, really? But we should have just put that in the, that's a capital budget item, right?
BET modified it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can give you the names if you'd like.
No, how much does it cost?
It's 1.1 million. We paid 500,000 600,000 the first year, 500,000 this year.
That feels like one that would have been so easy to just tuck into this capital budget. I guess oops. This is just more of a curious question, but the big step up in the average download usage, the bandwidth usage, it's like goes, I assume COVID made some step change and it goes from like 140 megabytes a second to 340 and then continues rising. What is there some phenomena that caused that? There was like,
You're talking about what happened several years ago?
yeah, there's like this step change. I'm just looking at the chart on page 9. It's like in 2019, 2020, it's 140 and then it goes to 340 and then just keeps climbing.
Yeah, that's probably in line with the number of devices that get connected to our network. 4 or 5 years ago, that number was closer to 10,000. Now it's closer to 15,000. So students are coming in with more devices. Things are connected to Wi-Fi like their watches and things like that. So it's probably the increase in the number of devices on the network.
But that's a 50% increase. And this is
I don't think it's linear. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But so people, as you add a device, the amount that you're downloading per device also increases.
I don't think it's exactly linear, but the usage of the bandwidth in general will increase, yes.
It's not related to like a curriculum thing or something where we added a bunch of new technology that more people were using, or we're using more online programming or something?
I would say we're more consistent in how we utilize some of our technology, like iExcel, for instance. It's very much on a routine where if you go back even 5 years ago, we were just introducing some of these things.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. There's such a big change, but we don't know exactly why, just year to year.
Any other questions or comments?
No, just one question,
Yeah.
really a comment. I mean, I think I say it every year, but in the world of IT, you usually only hear complaints. So the fact that we don't hear complaints is, an accolade in of itself. And I know there were PSATs today and also heard no negative reports, which is pretty incredible. So it just, the fact that you sort of seamlessly deploy all of these big issues every day is impressive. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And a big shout out to Anthony Brenna at Greenwich High School for managing the PSAT.
Have we not had any cybersecurity like takeovers or attacks? I guess not, because I've never heard about one.
So we get attacked constantly, but we have protocols in place. We have a 24/7 monitoring system in place, which detects and mediates a lot of those attacks.
But sorry, none of them have been successful, right? Like we haven't had a ransom or
none of them have been successful.
That's pretty impressive because I got to, that's a lot of, even big sophisticated companies have, they get things taken over and have to pay some Bitcoin ransom or whatever. So that's
the last successful was in 2019. And that was actually performed by 4 Greenwich High School students from the inside.
That's kind of impressive.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
And that just shows the kind of mindset where, they're very technologically savvy. It's fantastic. But I will say, I know that there was it was recently in the papers that there was an attack, cyber attack and takeover for educational purpose, took over the educational sphere and locked students out of access to their educational information and materials. We did not have that here. So knock on, well, this is plastic, but I'll find it. Knock on wood, but I was gonna say that again, it's just a testament to how incredible what you do and your staff does every single day. And we could not be more appreciative, for that all.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Jones had one thing to add.
Yeah, I just want to say as well, Mike, just thank you for everything that you do. I think one thing that I am always so thrilled about is when I email you and we're wanting to do something new or different, when we ask you to segment our network, you were like, we'll figure it out. And you made it happen. And I just did that to you. I think it was yesterday asking about Gemini and,
with AI.
We're ready to go. So you've really helped us continue to move forward with everything. And, I've worked with tech directors where when you ask and you keep pushing, they kind of push back because it means a lot of work to implement some of these new things. And you just say, yes, put your head down and you guys figure it out. So thank you to you and your entire team.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, we're almost at our last item. We have teacher absentee monthly report by Dr. Budd. I know this was put up today, so I'm not sure how many members had the opportunity to review it. So I'll let Dr. Budd take it away and give his presentation.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
So I'll try to make the presentation as interesting as I can at 10 o'clock because I truly could speak all night on this topic, but I won't unless you ask me to.
Please don't.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mike, if you could certainly advance, let me explain first the choices I made and how to present some data to you this evening. And I know it was suggested to me that there might be an interest in having some of this data on a more ongoing basis, which is fine. But for that reason, I wanted to make sure I clarified some basic principles of how we collect and typically present data on staff absenteeism, so we're all speaking the same language. And then I want to show and suggest some trends to you in our staff absence data from our first 7 weeks of this school year compared to the 2 school years before that. Thank you, Mike. So some key principles that are important, as I think was even mentioned earlier this meeting by more than one person, our goal is to have the best person in each position every day. And that means that we want the person we really hired for that position in the position each and every day. That sometimes is in tension with the second bullet, which is, like all the rest of us, the staff who work for GPS not just need, but are entitled to absences from work. Some of those are contractual and some of those are federally and state mandated, but it's logical that occasionally life is in tension with work, and we have to respect that and reasonably integrate it for the students' sake. So the building leaders and our office in human resources collaborate to make sure that absence provisions in contract and statute are implemented fairly and thoughtfully. So with that in mind, Mike, on the next slide, let me just give this basic. We do have the principle I want to distinguish of extended leave. And extended leave, for our purposes, would be those leaves of over a week or so. And they are typically permitted either by statute or by contract. And I've listed a couple examples there. And typically, people on those kind of leaves are replaced by long-term substitutes, such that if you're out for 7 weeks, let's say, having a joint replaced, we have somebody in the room who's going to maybe not do as good of a job as you would do, but a similarly good job. And we certainly don't seek to have, as was mentioned earlier, we do not seek to have random people going in and out of those assignments. So those are extended leaves. And for those leaves, more paperwork is required under the Family and Medical Leave Act or under contractual rights. We have more paperwork for people on extended leave. But we also have lots of other non-extended leave. And I've listed the most common examples there. Certainly the first 2 examples are the most common. Quantitatively, more people are out every day for sick day leave, which includes family illness leave, than for anything else. And the next biggest category is personal leave. And contracts in our group vary a little bit on what's allowable for this, but our biggest group are teachers, obviously, and our teachers receive 2 personal days if they're non-tenured and 3 if they're tenured. The other categories I list there: administrative, bereavement, jury duty, professional development, religious holiday, and there are some others. These are smaller, and they do mean that we do have people in those groups out every day, many of whom require substitutes, but they're not significantly countable for us. And so for data purposes, we're not going to talk about those tonight. That gets to the next slide, please, Mike, which is, since most of our absences are by far are in sick days and personal days, that's the data that it makes sense to chart. But when we talk in a minute about sick day data, I want to explain here that that excludes people on extended leave, FMLA, child rearing being the most common. The reason for that is, if you're out on an extended leave, we've typically hired a long-term substitute for you, and that long-term substitute is also entitled to sick and personal days. So we don't want to count a category twice. The extended leave people come off of our data when they go on extended leave, and then we analyze the other sick and personal days. So if you go to the next slide, this is in a way meaningful, but in a way not so meaningful. What does it show? Well, for the first 7 weeks of this school year, the first being the week on the left, August 26th to the 30th, and the 7th being the 6th to the 10th of October, the blue line charts average weekly teacher absenteeism. And the darker, or I guess it's a black or gray line, charts para, professional assistants, and security. Now, there's fewer professional assistants and security personnel than there are teachers, so it makes sense that that line is smaller. And you see that both lines spike 3 to 4 weeks ago compared to the first 3 or 4 weeks of the school year. So if you just look at the last section, October 6th to the 10th, when you combine all of those 5 days in that week and average them, you had slightly over 30 teachers out and slightly under 10 paras and security personnel out. But this isn't truly meaningful data, I guess, in the sense that it's hard to tell what this data really represents. So I now, on the next slide, please, Mike, contrast it for you with the first 7 weeks of the prior 2 school years. And we have been charting this, collecting and charting this data with the same methodology for 3 years. So these are apples to apples comparisons. And what I would draw your attention to, please, is the bold row on the bottom. So you see this year and the 2 prior years for teachers. And then you see this year and the 2 prior years for our professional assistants and security. And I'm going to talk here about the teachers mainly. I want to say that both the teachers themselves and the administrators who lead the schools and lead the district have worked collaboratively to attempt to reduce absenteeism where possible. So the trend is downward over the past 3 years. If you look at those first 7 weeks, with approximately 25 teachers on average now being absent, compared to in 23-24, approximately 32 teachers absent per day. You will observe on the PA and security part of the chart, it's a little bit higher this year than it was last year, but without being overly descriptive and violating any privacy, I will say that is mainly due to some specific individual cases in a group that is not as large as the teacher group. So we are seeing a positive trend in this regard. At the same time, you might say, well, what does this even represent? Okay, 25 people are out. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? So I thought, Mike, if you'd advance it, what could be of also interest to you is to take this year's data for teachers and paras security. And what's new on this slide is just the last row. What percentage of the staff in the group is represented? So 24.9 average absences for teachers is about 2.8% of our unit. I don't know that there have been any comprehensive studies anywhere on this, but to me, about 2.8% of a group seems like a somewhat reasonable amount that might be sick or have personal events going on that mean they can't be at work on a given day. And of course, these are individuals who are in schools and classrooms with children who sometimes come to school ill and are kind of in close conversation. These aren't cubicle jobs. The para rate is a little bit higher, as I say, and that's due to some specific circumstances. Now, where we do have to talk a little bit is represented on the next slide. This takes the 7th week and shows you Monday through Friday, the week of October 10th. And clearly, the Friday of October 10th, we had much higher absenteeism in both groups, teachers and professional assistants security, than we did any other day of the week. In fact, Monday, which is a distant second, is less than half of the total for Friday. Now, that happened to be the Friday of Columbus Day weekend, but I observed we weren't closed on Monday of Columbus Day. What would I say on this slide? And first of all, the final bullet, the administrators and I meet about this data. We meet about it, not just globally, but individually, in terms of school-based trends and also individual absence trends. And we meet with individual staff members as well. But this path of Friday absenteeism is not atypical, and there are reasons for it. There are in any organization staff members who have more personal commitments, for example, on a Friday. We tend to see that more in the spring, but we tend to see more wedding activity, graduation activity, et cetera, than things scheduled on a Tuesday, right? But I observe here, although this is a presentation on absenteeism and not substitute coverage, it would be fair to say there's no way that this district or any other will be able to have enough substitutes in the stable to cover everybody who would need one on a Friday, because though you would have to assume that you have a labor market of per diem subs who are just willing, quite a few of them, to not work Mondays through Thursday, but to be available on Friday, and to also think that that labor market doesn't have the same personal events that our teachers do. One last point, though, we want to represent that when we look at absenteeism, this counts every staff member. Not every staff member requires or would be able to use a substitute, a school counselor, a speech language pathologist. These are examples of people who are not there, but their absences for short-term sick and personal leave aren't filled. I am very proud to say that we have made very good strides with substitute hiring. So although this isn't a presentation really about substitutes, I will tell you that for the first time that I'm aware of, we have every building substitute position filled, and there are 43 of those positions. And those are, as most of you know, people who are every day in the same school. And thus you get to know the school community and can go into different classrooms. We had all 43 filled. And when we got this presentation ready earlier in the week, I was really excited. And then one of the 43 resigned. So we're at 42 out of 43, which means if there are a few people listening who are interested in employment in the Greenwich Public Schools, I encourage you to apply right away, and we'll interview you for the 43rd. But we have a 98% fill rate on the building subs. And we interviewed 5 additional daily subs earlier this week and have 5 more scheduled Monday. At any rate, I've diverted it into substitute coverage, which I shouldn't do because you've asked me to chat about absenteeism. That's my last slide. Certainly, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have a comment for improving this report, which I think is great. You should, on the typical week, which is a really useful, that's probably the most useful, I would break out in each bar what is sick day versus other stuff. Because I think, if people are entitled to their contractual right to take a personal day, I'd be very, very curious to see if there's a disproportionate number of sick days taken on Fridays, on nice weather days, on days, I guess on days where it seems unusual that you wouldn't have a random distribution of sick days. So do you know, by the way, like if you looked at that week, were most of those personal days, like the bump, was that bump entirely personal days, or was it sick days as well?
The Friday the 10th, the principals and I looked at that data in great detail. You have a good suggestion, by the way. There were more sick days taken on that particular Friday than normal. In other words, the trend of personal days kind of aligned with what we see. There was a high spike in sick days there.
Oh yeah, that I looked to, the weather was 61 degrees that day and sunny. So, very conducive to colds. It's also interesting that all the red shirts that were in the room didn't stay for this report.
Well, now you make me feel bad.
No, I think this is an important one. It should probably be
They went
moved
home
up.
and logged on.
Yeah, good.
I actually will say that I reviewed this presentation with the GA leadership yesterday afternoon because some of those GA leaders sit with me and building principals in pre-disciplinary or disciplinary meetings on people with excessive absenteeism. And I explained that now we're looking at the global trends, but you see the individual piece as well. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Cody.
Sophie?
I actually had the exact same question, but the follow-up would be what happened on Monday, Columbus Day, since it was a long weekend?
Well, I want you to ask me to come back. We take about a week to reconcile the data, so I don't have that yet. And you say, why does it take so long? Because there's a lag time between what teachers report and then how we get them sometimes to document. I can get that through Tony to you sooner, and I'll present it next time.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to tag team all of, both of those statements and say, I think the other thing that would be interesting is because I'll just use that particular weekend because you're going to talk about Columbus Day. If there's teachers that were out and absent on Monday, Columbus Day, and had to take a personal day, how many of those educators have students that are in other districts where those school days, their school was off and they don't, they are their primary child's care, they needed to be home with their students who are in another school district. I think that's also kind of something important, I think is, not that we're questioning that. I just think it's important to note that they're not skipping school to teach our school, but they have other commitments as well. They have a life outside of it. Just think it's an interesting data point in comparison to also what you were talking about, Cody.
Yeah, they've got pretty robust contracts though. So if you get,
Yeah, be that as it may, sometimes, these things pop up. But my question was really more about, so out of care, I know that they have sick, in our contracts, we have sick days built in, I know there's a certain number of sick days allowed, but because we require this and the state requires it from students, right? If they're out too many sick days that are sick and they're required to come in with a doctor's note, right? After a certain amount of sick days for students, you're looking at as for truancy.
Chronic absentee.
Right. So my question then becomes, and this is, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just curious, do we require proof for educators if they're, obviously, if it doesn't come up for family and medical leave, right? If you're talking about sick days, or for instance, jury duty, for instance, I'll use
It's
that.
actually the key part of our contract, of
What,
our
jury
contract
duty?
negotiation. No. Sick days was a key part of our contract negotiation.
Oh, well, this is good to know. My point is, again, for students through the state, we are required, after they are absent for a certain number of days, they're required to provide proof from a medical professional. So is it just to not show truancy? The question then becomes, is that, I'm just out of curiosity, is that something that is required for educators?
Karen, it's after 5 days now per the new contract. If you're out for 5 consecutive days, you have to get a note from a doctor.
Okay.
It was
five
7.
So it's five consecutive days, not 7 now. And is it things also for, jury, for instance?
Yes, almost all of those smaller types of leave require proof and are actually entered by human resources personnel. You have a subpoena, you have something like that. Personal days for the teachers, they have one day where they do not have to give a reason annually. And the other day or days that teachers have, they do have to give a reason that has to match the contractual requirements for personal days. The sick day piece that Kathleen and Sophie were just speaking of absolutely has changed in the next contract for July 1st. And what's also changed in the contract is a recognition in writing by the association that they recognize that discipline can be enacted for abuse or patterns of sick leave. So occasionally, for example, and this is my moment to stress, 99% of the staff come to work and work exceptionally hard as many days as they can. But occasionally we have people where it might not be consecutive absences, but for example, quite unusual patterns of absences on professional learning days or days that there are after school meetings, and our building leaders are quite good about tracking that. And then we can ask, when we do ask for documentation. This is also my opportunity to say that the contractual limits for these things are limits. Some would argue they're generous limits, but they're limits. So people who have personal leave, personal requests to be out more than the contract allows, those are handled specifically by Tony and me. And there are cases where there's discipline for those situations as well, because ultimately, as you suggest, the students have and their families have kind of consequences for truancy or chronic absenteeism, and that only naturally means we need the staff there, particularly if they're not on some approved documented leave. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to make sure that it was pointed out because I know inevitably, we get these questions, especially around budget time, especially from, members of BET who are looking very closely at our budget and so forth, that it's important to note that our teachers don't just take time off because they want to, oftentimes that we do require proof from them if they're out sick or they're, required to go to jury duty, et cetera. And it's good to know also that our building leaders are on top of it if they notice some odd patterns of absenteeism. So, and that you guys are really closely looking at it. I think it's really important to note. So I appreciate that. And Michael, Joseph, do you have your hand up? No. Or you just video on? Okay. Kathleen.
So Jonathan, thank you so much for this report. I think it's good. I think that what we learned is that, and I'm happy you shared it with the GEA, because I know that you're right. Most of them are, good stewards, come to work, but they wanted to be our partners in this. And I think that this is helpful in actually addressing some of the underlying issues, but the trends look good with the exception of Friday. So hopefully we can, get that under control, and then we'll be in a great place. So thank you. And Jonathan, I know we don't thank you to the same extent that Michael Ting, but you're the head of HR, so I guess you're used to it.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Well, I was just going to say, there was going to be a thanks at the end there just on, I know that this discussion on absenteeism has come up a couple times. So the fact that you guys are presenting that to us and going to be presenting it in a semi-frequent basis, I think is going to be great and help answer a lot of questions that we've had over the course of time.
Can I make it won't affect me, but a recommendation would be to move this to when Tony gives her comments in the beginning of the meeting. It's such like clean data that will be easy to present. It's just a great one when we have everyone's attention. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, tonight was a very heavy agenda, and I try to put the paid professionals up front. But we'll get Dr. Bud earlier on the agenda.
And I was going to say also, sometimes we do action first and sometimes at the end. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments for Dr. Bud? Anyone going once, going twice? Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really lovely and easy to understand and digest. So that helps us move on to the agenda plan discussion. Anyone have?
We will be having the pool feasibility on here, but I'm going to wait and make sure that we're solid for the date before we put anything on. The one thing that I want to point out, because I know some of you were confused because you've asked, this current sitting board does actually sit at the meeting on November 6th. And some of you are thinking that because it's a budget meeting, but remember, it's very short. I present the budget. We don't ask questions or do anything. So that really is. And then the next meeting, that November 20th, is when people are sworn in and officers are elected, because it's the business meeting.
And I know Cody was like, dang it. The budget chair doesn't want to be there to listen to the operating.
I'm in England that day, so I'm going to maybe dial in for the beginning and then.
Well, I hope that you dial in. And I was going to say for our current sitting members, this is how, unless we want to add anything to the agenda, I was going to end my statement.
Who knows?
I was just going to say, I wanted to remind our sitting members that, we do have, some of us leaving and new board members that we're going to be welcoming soon, but being that it is the last meeting that you guys will be sitting at, we will be doing a little something to say thank you for the hard work, the amount of volunteer hours that each of you guys have put forward for the betterment of our students and our educational community is so greatly appreciated. And, we want to be able to honor your participation and your the positive work that you guys have done over the course of your time as members of the Board of Education. So please do make sure that you come, don't skip out on, and call in sick on your last meeting, November 6th. Yeah. No, just November 6th.
Okay, so I'm going to dial into that one.
That's fine, even if you're there just for the beginning and we have the opportunity to, if it makes you feel any better, I too will be dialing in because we have Parents Weekend in college. So, but we want to be able to thank you. I just want to say we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to thank and honor our current sitting and departing members before we have the opportunity to welcome the newest members of the Board of Education at the November 20th meeting, who will look forward to, bringing on board and working with from then onward.
But we don't have to go to the meeting.
You do not have to. No.
Okay. Yeah.
No. I'll send this all to you in a formatted document in Excel, because I know you like that. But if there's nothing else to add to this,
Karen?
yes?
Sorry, I didn't mean to stamp anything. I did have something, I did have a suggestion for, future meetings, for the meeting agenda. Sorry.
You wanted to add something to the agenda for a future meeting?
Yeah,
Agenda planning? Okay.
sorry. I didn't mean to stamp on it. Yeah, I
No,
had
no,
my
it's
hand up,
fine.
you didn't see. So I know there's a lot of, be quick, but I know there's a lot of, there seems to be a lot in the news about back and forth around the speed zones in front of the schools, and I think it would be appropriate to talk to the chief about what's going on there and
So you want to have
he
Hebe
solved-
come, you want to have Hebe
Yeah.
come and do a little presentation? I'm sure we can ask him. So
Yes,
is
we got
that,
him on you saw that it was on off and now it's on again, but it's only on a few schools.
I think they
so
had
this
him, but
is
they're
just-
not being turned on.
Yeah, for those of us that are curious that drive through those zones, can you share anything about how they work or what it is?
When you go at a fast speed, they go ka-ching.
How
I don't know.
fast?
I don't know. But I will tell you, if you accidentally hit, a utility pole, they find you pretty quick. Anywho, it wasn't speeding, no. Anyway, so is there anything else we wanted to add, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Sophie, all those in favor? Wow, another unanimous decision. So thank you guys, and we will see, yes, all of you, either virtual or not, at our next meeting to present the budget. Thank you and good night.